Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ніхто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1195 of the War News Stream. And we have another holy cow type of day for news. Ukraine has struck the Russian Kerch bridge yet again, this time using underwater drones. Also, Ukraine's preparing for a Russian IRBM retaliation. And also, mainland Russia is under a new major drone attack as of earlier today. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world as we have been able to hear in a significant upset to the Russian Federation that the armed forces of Ukraine has once again successfully hit the Kerch bridge with a significant explosion being caused near to the main span of the railway bridge just earlier today by a whopping 1,100 kilogram explosive, which is close to a 2,500 pound bomb. The explosion apparently has destabilized the main columns of the structure, and it appears that at this point, the railroad bridge may have actually been taken out of action, while the road bridge did begin its operations once more here just hours after the attack. We have been able to hear that the Russian Federation is continuing to reel along with this information about the shocking revelation of the Ukrainian drone attack, as the Ukrainian armed forces have stated that they have taken out about 41 Russian bombers out of service, a statement that has actually been a little bit conflated today by many, as some have been stating that that is completely destroyed bombers. Some have been saying that that's destroyed and slightly damaged bombers. We've been able to tell that this largely means destroyed and damaged bombers, although that may also be in question, as a larger satellite picture today came out of the Belaya Air Base in the Irkutsk Oblast, showing the entire tarmac with bombers destroyed down its entire length, at least about 9 or 10 of them being seen in that one satellite picture alone, possibly suggesting that there may have truly been 41 Russian bombers that have been completely destroyed at this point. And holy moly, a big shout out to Hawk for the massive support.
Thank you, Hawk.
Jeez, that's huge. I got to thank you massively for that. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that Ukrainian intelligence has stated that in the People's Republic of China, it appears that the Chinese are now supplying equipment to military factories of the Russian Federation and largely supporting the Russian war effort inside of Ukraine. This is also coming as of the news that apparently while the Russians have been realizing that around 41 of their bombers have been destroyed, the Russian general of the Air Force fell out of a window and died today. Unfortunately, we were all heard that he was on his way to slip and fall school, and it appears that he already had passed the exam that he was going to be arriving for and slip and fell clean out of a window in Moscow. Once again, very unfortunate to see that so many people are doing so well in slip and fall school. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that in the area of NATO, we have been able to hear that Zelensky has been invited to the NATO summit against the U.S. wishes, and we've also been able to hear that the United States is now giving the Iranians an ultimatum that they will not be able to conduct any nuclear enrichment of any sort, of any type, on any radioactive materials inside of Iran, according to the Office of the President of the United States earlier today. We have also been able to hear throughout the entirety of Ukraine that Ukrainian defenses are continuing to try and hold their ground as much as they can, inflicting high casualties on the Russian Federation forces, and shockingly enough, the casualties have now become so high that we are starting to see a massive amount of losses of North Korean, well, more so Russian equipment, and the introduction of North Korean equipment throughout the entirety of the active front. Even North Korean infantry mortars are now being seen throughout the entirety of the active front, as it does appear that the Russian Federation is running on fumes at this point in terms of military equipment. We have a massive amount of news today, and these are just the little pieces, the big highlights, more so, of what we're going to be covering tonight. But many of y'all can get the picture, the gist, or the idea that the amount of news that we will be covering tonight is going to be a massive amount. Quite a large amount, as a matter of fact. So make sure to strap yourselves in, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, by the way, because we are going to be getting through all of this, and it's going to be a decent amount. So moving on into the area of the Kerch Strait, we have to get into the news of the Kerch Bridge. It is, of course, the biggest thing that has happened today, even still up until this point, and it appears that the Ukrainians are going out of their way every single day to bring the Russians through what I call the humility clinic, as it appears that they are now starting to show the Russians that they are not as invincible and legendary as they've liked to make many people around the world think. The Kerch Bridge is one of the most important ways that the Ukrainians can attack that invincible and legendary status that the Russians attempt to try and push forward to people around the entirety of the world. Since the beginning of time, the Crimean Peninsula, or really the beginning of recorded history, the Crimean Peninsula has never been directly connected to the Russian Federation or any kind of a Russian predecessor state. Throughout the centuries, the only way that the Russian Federation has ever held direct control over Crimea was largely by directly controlling the majority of the modern-day state of Ukraine as well. Recently, after the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014 by the Russian Federation, Putin has attempted to try and find a way to physically connect Crimea to Russia rather than just having a ferry service in between the two, leading to the construction of the Kerch Bridge. The Kerch Bridge was completed around late 2018 and early 2019, and since then it has been an important part of Russia's ability to exert control over the Crimean Peninsula, and one of their attempts to legitimize their claim that Crimea is Russia's because it has a direct access to mainland Russia. This, however, has been something that the Ukrainians have not been a big fan of, especially since the beginning of the war. The Kerch Bridge has been a significant supply line, at least at the earlier part of the war, for supplying the Russian Federation's forces inside the Kherson and Crimea oblasts with significant amounts of military equipment that have been used against the Ukrainian armed forces in battle, and this made this an incredibly important bridge to attempt to destroy and knock out. After the first successful attacks that the Ukrainians conducted against the bridge in late 2022 and early 2023, the Russian Federation started to phase out the prevalence of the bridge in favor of the railroad ferries from the area of the direction of the Kavkaz port and into the ports of Taman, which we can see right up here, or Port Krim, and also the port inside of Kerch itself. Later on, in the middle part of 2024, these railroad ferries would also be systematically targeted and mostly destroyed, with practically all railroad ferries suffering some levels of damage and 3 of them being sunk at their moorings. We were able to see that that was a death blow to the the Russian logistical chain that crossed the Kerch Strait as well, and it appears that since then, while the Russians have largely been attempting to use the land corridor as their way to supply the forces inside of Crimea and Kherson, the bridge has been able to hold some small pertinence or significance in terms of material supply. But more so at this point, it largely serves as a propaganda fist of the Russians to be able to show that their iron grip continues to control Crimea, and there is a direct way for Russians to be able to flow into Crimea and largely subjugate and control the peninsula up until the present day. And that was until today, at least to some degree, as we were able to see that right here, let me go show y'all where this was, right about here, on the railroad bridge, there was quite a significant incident. A 1,100 kilogram explosive blew up at the base of the bridge, and from what we were able to hear, it appears that it caused enough damage that it may have actually ended up knocking out the railroad bridge, at least for a while, due to structural integrity concerns. And we were actually able to see this explosion by a security, I'm not really sure if this is a security camera or what, it's in a very weird spot, but we were able to see the explosion from right here. And that was one hell of an explosion.
That was massive right there. Just like, I can't really tell, there's too much debris flying around, but I think it just absolutely took out the entire pillar almost.
It looks like it may have knocked out most of the pillar. I don't know why I'm stuttering so bad tonight, folks. I'm actually, like, unironically stuttering. But beyond that, we believe that the bomb, or at least the large explosive, may have been planted by a Ukrainian underwater submersible drone. These drones have been unveiled to the public and shown before. They are relatively new, at least in being used in the war. We've never really seen any proof of them being used so far, but we did get a video of the submersible drone that may have possibly been used being tested out right here by the Ukrainians. And that thing is a big boy right there. I mean, that thing's pretty massive.
Like, I think we're working on something similar to that here in the United States. We have like these torpedo-shaped drone autonomous vehicles like this, but I think Ukraine took it to another level with like 1,100 kilograms of explosives on board. I think ours are for reconnaissance. Theirs is for literally blowing the crap out of a bridge.
Yeah, it appears so. We're not really sure if this thing just went up to the side of the pillar and then detonated, or if it planted some sort of an explosive and left. We don't really know, but this thing is this thing is actually larger than some of the normal kinds of submarine-borne torpedoes that you would see in service in most navies around the world to this day. Let me actually go get a Mark 43 torpedo, just to quickly show y'all a fairly common torpedo, at least in the U.S. Navy's arsenal. Hold up, sorry.
Why are those guys riding the like drone like the Great Alaskan Bullworm or something? I mean, what is up with that?
I don't even know, honestly. But this thing is massive. Just to show you all this really quickly, this is your average Mark 48 torpedo, which has been used by the U.S. Navy submarine fleet for decades at this point, and is a fairly well-tested sort of a torpedo. Never really been used a lot in combat. The U.S. submarine fleet has never been tested, unfortunately, in combat. I'm sure it would do quite well. But this is one of the larger caliber torpedoes that is currently in naval service in the world currently. And when you compare the size of these guys, of the size of these Ukrainian guys literally riding the thing like the Alaskan Bullworm, it is a pretty crazy thing to see the absolute scale of this underwater, practically torpedo drone. Insane sort of a thing. I don't believe this thing can get up to any kind of high speeds, but speed is not really the importance of an underwater submersible. It's more so its ability to travel underwater without really anyone being able to detect it. And if it was the system that was used to attack the bridge, it appears that the system has been proven to be successful. We were also able to see additional information showing that the pillar may have actually been destroyed, as there was a significant amount of debris that actually got flung up onto the road bridge's surface from the explosion at the railway pillar. If some of y'all are wondering, why in the world did the information change earlier today, that is because I was able to get more information and research in between that video made earlier today and right now to change the information from the road bridge to the railway bridge segment. Just to let y'all know this really quickly, me and Matthew were spending all day yesterday moving around a whole bunch of stuff, and we have been absolutely exhausted since then. We don't really get a lot of physical activity, so any kind of strenuous activity absolutely wipes us out. So I had just literally woken up and immediately started making that video when it went out earlier today. So I didn't really have an extremely in-depth amount of time to be able to research the topic exactly, but since then I have been able to do my normal amount of research. And we were able to see that there was a significant amount of damage caused to the railway segment bridge, at least in the satellite picture. The graphical quality of the satellite picture is admittedly low, but even with it being admittedly low, we can see something important. This is the area that we're looking at right here from satellite. this is the exact area, just to make sure that we line this up for y'all. There and there. This is what it looked like before. This was, I believe, earlier on the 3rd of June. And this is what it looked like now.
It looks like they might have gotten the pillar. It's hard to tell from here. What is the little piece that goes out into the water? Like, can you go back to the clear picture we have from the CCTV camera real quick? Let's take a look at the ground. Like, is there that other photo that we have available?
I don't think so. Which one are you talking about? The one where the explosion happened?
Yeah, the one from the video showing us the explosion. Yeah, right there. So there's like some type of contraption there off to the left. What is that, by the way, off to the left of the pillar?
I believe these are supposed to be pretty much buffers for vessels that may go astray, so that way they don't run directly into the pillar. They hit these first and slow down enough that if they hit the pillar, there isn't significant damage strong enough to actually knock out the bridge.
Interesting, because it kind of looks to me like it really damaged the first one. It's just really hard to tell what kind of damage it did to the actual bridge pillar itself, because those are like built to some pretty extreme tolerances, to my knowledge. So even with 1,100 kilograms of explosives, it clearly didn't cause the bridge to collapse, which I think was probably the goal behind the attack. But it might have maybe dented it or something. But it wasn't. I think they might have fell short of what they were hoping for, I think.
They may have. It doesn't appear that the railway bridge was completely taken out, but it does appear that at least as far as the explosive force, it may have compromised the structural integrity of the bridge's pillars. But we were able to hear that before long, road traffic had resumed on the road segment of the bridge, which was not the target of this attack, and we believe it was not significantly damaged at all, beyond the large piece of metal flying up onto the upper deck of the bridge, and then just sitting there. It doesn't really appear that a significant amount of damage was caused from that. We were able to see, however, that smoke was rising from the bridge today, which we can see right there, possibly suggesting that something near to the waterline was actually on fire as a result of the explosion, although we don't really know exactly what would be flammable down there to catch on fire. We also were able to hear, along with that, just to make sure that we follow through with everything that we have, that there were secondary explosions that apparently did occur at the bridge, at least according to initial reports, although I have not been able to find any video or picture evidence confirming the secondary explosions did occur. Beyond that, however, regardless of the damage that was caused to the bridge today, and whether we're able to confirm the severity of the damage, it's pretty much up in the air at this point, how much damage was actually caused to the railroad bridge, it does appear that this is quite a shock. The KERCH bridge has been heavily defended over the past year or a year and a half, and the defenses have been built up extremely, including a large series of caissons or barges that have pretty much been sunk in place out on both sides of the bridge, and have had large anti-vessel and anti-submarine nets placed throughout the entirety of them. The fact that a Ukrainian drone or Ukrainian operatives were able to get into the secure site of the bridge and plant explosives, or bring in a drone that had a significant amount of explosives in it and detonate it directly onto the pillar, is once again showing that the Ukrainians are embarrassing the Russians once more, and showing that they have absolutely no way to truly defend anything, even when it is the most defended thing in the war. There are only two things in this war that the Russians have defended properly, or at least a massive amount: the city of Moscow, and also the KERCH bridge. And the fact that a Ukrainian drone attack was able to hit the pillar today, we're assuming that it was a submersible drone that attacked the bridge, and was able to detonate onto it without being detected or stopped, is once again showing that no matter what, not even the best Russian defenses, or attempt at best Russian defenses, will be able to stop Ukrainian attacks from breaking through and causing extremely significant damage. Before we move on from that, though, a lot of people have been talking about the Ukrainians striking the bridge with underwater drones, and a lot of people are wondering, will the Ukrainians strike again soon? Because an interesting cryptic sort of a statement was made. They said the first explosion on the Crimean bridge had occurred, possibly suggesting that there was to be secondary and tertiary explosives happening either later in the day or later in the following days and weeks, or even months. But Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like the big question is, will Ukraine strike again soon since they did this attack? Are they going to come back and finish the job after this one? So 75% said yes, another big strike is coming soon on the KERCH bridge, while 14% said it's a 50-50 chance, and 6% said no, this was a one-and-done strike. And honestly, I will say this, in my interpretation and my assessment, the attack today was certainly an embarrassment for the Russians, but I think it fell short of Ukraine's goal of actually causing significant damage to the bridge itself. It was more of letting the Russians know that they can get access to the bridge if they want to, they can destroy it, but either the explosives weren't strong enough or either there was some planning issue that went into play here, which caused the bridge not necessarily to collapse the way they hoped it to be, and instead it just sort of damaged it to a pretty good extent. So it kind of fell a little bit short, in my opinion. Not to be a damper on things, but it fell a little bit short. So I think another big strike is coming because Ukraine has proven they can approach the bridge, they can plant explosives, and they can do it successfully. So now they need to scale that up to actually finish the job off. And I think they will logically end up doing that. It's just a matter of how long will that take to pull that off. And also, is Russia going to respond in the meantime? So I'm with the majority. I think another one is coming very soon. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. A second attack is going to have to be coming soon. And I would also have to agree with Matthew that I believe this attack largely fell short. I believe the initial plan of the Ukrainian armed forces was to detonate the bomb at the base of the bridge and compromise the column to such an extreme degree that the structural integrity of the bridge was compromised so thoroughly that a train could not pass over the bridge without the entire main segment having to be replaced along with the columns. I believe that that is the original intention of the Ukrainian attack that occurred today, and considering that while significant or more so moderate damage was caused, I don't believe it was the kind of damage that the Ukrainians were looking for, largely meaning that there will be a second attack that's going to be coming around to try and hit the bridge and knock it out once and for all, especially considering that the railway bridge is the one that holds the most importance, at least logistically, for the Russian Federation's armed forces. I'd also have to say, as a secondary thing, that this appears to be a running trend, at least over the last week, that Ukraine is going out of their way to target and destroy railroad bridges throughout the whole of Russia. I've said it many times on this channel through the years, considering that I'm a big railway aficionado, or a foamer, as some people would call it, or a railroader, as some others would call it. I have always been a massive proponent of the idea of attacking and destroying Russia's railway infrastructure, because it's actually one of the few countries left on Earth that primarily uses the railroads alone for all of their logistical transport. Unlike the United States, where it's more of a half and half blend, where the United States uses half trucking and half railroad, the Russian Federation pretty much uses 80% railroads for all of their logistics throughout the country, both civilian and military. And the military actually heavily relies on the railroads to be able to move their equipment around. This means that destroying anything that may be considered a weak point of the Russian Federation's rail infrastructure would be wildly important to be able to ensure that the Russian Federation's armed forces are doing the worst that they can. And railroads are not as easy to attack as road structures. Roads can be cratered with bombs and pretty much put out of operation in that way alone, because vehicles require a fairly even surface to be able to move over, and if there are too large of craters inside of a roadwork, that roadwork is completely knocked out instantaneously. Rails, on the other hand, are quite easy to damage, but even easier to repair, meaning that if you hit a level roadbed, there's not really going to be a lot caused in terms of permanent damage to that, and that really could be replaced or even mended within the day. On the other hand, though, destroying railroad bridges is truly the Achilles heel of any kind of a railroad infrastructure throughout the entirety of the world. And we've been able to see that over the past week alone, the Ukrainians, or largely Ukrainian-affiliated groups, have knocked out railroad bridges in Bryansk, Kursk, and I believe I've also heard one was knocked out in Belgrade as well. And now we're seeing that they targeted the railroad bridge in the Kerch Strait as well. This is something that I believe is a orchestrated Ukrainian plan to truly strike at what keeps the Russian army running, which is the Russian railroads. And if they continue on with this plan, I believe that we actually will start to see significant impacts and damage being caused to the Russian Federation's supply abilities or logistics capacity inside of Ukraine, because if all of Russia's railroads near to the border and most of the bridges being used there have been knocked out, that means that most supply trains are going to be bottlenecking down singular main lines in most areas, meaning that their supply capacity is going to be greatly diminished, because instead of those supplies being able to rapidly make it to their railheads and then be put onto the trucks or the cars to be sent forward to the front, they're pretty much waiting on the main line itself, waiting to be able to get up to the railheads, considering that there are literally, at that point, only a handful of main lines that would be operational to any given area near to the active front. So while
That's true. That could be very devastating if they take out enough rail bridges. That could be extremely extremely bad for the logistics efforts. Also, by the way, I wanted to point out something else. Something that I also thought today while seeing this attack in action and watched all the footage and got all the information was the fact that Ukraine chose to strike the bridge pillar using an underwater drone instead of using an air-based munition, like, for example, a Taurus or something of that nature, like a Storm or a Scalp EG. It lets us know basically that Ukraine either does not have a Taurus missile yet from Germany, they haven't either been delivered, or they are never going to get them. That tells us one or the other, because I have a feeling that if Ukraine had the Taurus, they would have used that to strike the bridge, because that would have had a much greater chance of actually disabling the railway bridge on the Kerch Bridge, instead of trying to take out the really highly reinforced pillar at the very bottom toward the water. Because if they can send in, for example, a Taurus, they can strike the top of the railway bridge itself, knock it out, and naturally you're going to bend the metal and everything's going to get all mangled up at the top, and that'll actually put it out of action right now instead of chipping away at the concrete at the base of the structure.
Interesting enough, speaking about the best way to hit the bridge, let me go pull up the Crimean Bridge, or Crimea River Bridge. The best way to hit this bridge would actually be a side-on hit near to where the actual main span meets the columns itself. Because if you were able to do that just inside of that segment, the explosive force alone may be enough to jar the entire structure and lift it up off the columns, separate it from the other tracks beyond and the other segments, and then drop it into the sea. Hitting it directly above is a fairly good chance at causing a lot of damage, but that damage might be able to be shored up a little bit easier. If you hit it directly alongside, though, considering that bridges are made as a load-bearing structure to support weight coming from directly above, they're never made to have forces exerted on them of any significant type from the sides except for expected wind velocities. That means that a missile exploding directly along the side of that railway span right on the level side would or possibly would be able to uproot it and force it down into the water below, not only knocking out the railway bridge but also knocking out the shipping lane beneath it.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. Also, another thing about today is because they did not fully damage the bridge bad enough to actually put it out of action, because I saw someone saying that the pillar will take a very long time to fix, and it probably will. It probably will take a long time to fix, but I have a very strong feeling Russia's going to keep running trains across this bridge regardless of the damage. They're going to keep them going. That's my guess. It's probably not going to knock it out of action in operational sense, but it will require, obviously, repairs to fix it. But now that Russia has seen Ukraine had the ability to sneak in this sea drone to plant these explosives, that's going to cause Russia to shore up their defenses even more on the sea side of things, to try to put up more nets and more defenses to keep those from approaching the bridge again. So now Ukraine has ruled out a lot of options. They can't drive a truck across the bridge like they did one of the first times to explode the truck to damage the bridge. They can't do that. The security is too high. Also, there's a lot of air defense, so it makes it hard to put air munitions on target. Now they're going to add more netting and things like that to stop sea drones from approaching it. So it's becoming progressively harder time and time again to hit the bridge. So I think their only realistic option after this is probably going to be to use something like a Taurus that is stealth to a degree, that can come in and strike on the side like the Enforcer was just talking about. Outside of that, it's getting insanely impossible to hit the thing at this point.
It is getting incredibly difficult. And while I will say that the rail traffic has not been entirely knocked out, the one line crossing over that pillar has been knocked out for the large part. It probably has been damaged enough that the structural integrity is questionable, so they're most likely running trains one at a time across the one line that would be active and would have intact pillars. That would at least be my guess at this point, because they're probably not going to shut down rail traffic completely, considering it's incredibly important, both strategically as well as commercially important. But that brings up something else. Just to speculate here, folks, this is something I think is going to happen here in the near future. Having known a little bit about railroads, there is something that used to be very common here in the U.S. railroading-wise, but has fallen out of pertinence or really significance in freight railroading here in America, and that is less than carload traffic. And less than carload traffic is an interesting thing, because let me just pull up a boxcar here for y'all real quick. Back in the day, less than carload traffic was quite literally what it meant. You were loading up a boxcar with less than its full volume, meaning that multiple different customers would have their cargo loaded into a singular boxcar. Every single country in the world has a boxcar, and the Russian Federation uses a lot of these. The fact that these sorts of operations are incredibly common still throughout the Russian Federation maybe leading the Ukrainians to be able to hit at Russia's Achilles heel transportation-wise once again. You all know that at this moment, at this very time and day, the Russians are stopping and inspecting quite literally every single 18-wheeler moving in the Russian Federation right now for possible explosives or bombs that are being transported by Ukrainian operatives that are using the Russian trailers that are largely not inspected to be able to get them through the country. These could also be pretty much sabotaged the same way. You could just get a little customs order or a customer order filled out to say, yes, I am definitely not a Ukrainian agent, and I like to transport these sacks of an undisclosed item, apples and fruits, from this place in Russia to the next. As a matter of fact, I want to transport it from Krasnodar over to Sevastopol. And guess what? That freight train is going to cross the Crimean Bridge. And if it did, and it was a less than carload, and it had a significant amount of explosives inside of those sacks, and it was just never inspected, that could lead to a significant amount of damage onto the railroad bridge. Just an idea, not one that anyone
Could you
would ever...
imagine, though? I imagine they're checking probably all kinds of railway cars. I would imagine that that's probably the one place where they probably did inspect these cars was going over the Kerch Bridge. If they didn't, I would be blown away if they didn't, because they're already doing that to trucks. If a truck crosses the Kerch Bridge, they're inspecting that truck very heavily because of what Ukraine did in the past. Then they probably already carried that over to railway cars, would be my guess. Because if they didn't, that would be beyond even the Russians' incompetence at that point.
Let's see here. This satellite footage here actually is so old they were still building the bridge at the time. I was about to say, let's take a look and see if there's anywhere where they could actually stop a train. Because you can't really stop a train as easily as a car or a truck. Like we can see here that there's some sort of like a security station on the road. There probably wouldn't be one for the railroads because it's generally assumed, considering that the entire thing is run by the Russian state railways, that they would generally be safe to go and they probably wouldn't inspect it too much. So possibly that could be something that could be done. Not that I'm saying it would be done, and I'm not saying that the Ukrainians would be planning on doing that, but if I was in the Ukrainian SBU and I wanted to take out the bridge, that is something I'd certainly try and do. I mean, hell, why not? Like, better yet, another easier way to do that and even get more damage or a possibility of damage is to just simply go buy out an industry inside of Russia, pretty much shut the thing down, and then just pretend like you're still exporting the same products from your business that you were before, but instead of loading them up with the standard goods, you're loading up these boxcars with nothing but the maximum load of explosives that they can take, and just hope that no one pays attention and it crosses the Crimean Bridge right at the right time at the right place. I think that would be pretty interesting. That might actually end up causing a lot of additional damage to the bridge, and probably enough to actually knock the thing out for a long time. But anyways, with that, also enhances that a train can be stopped anywhere we want. That's true, but generally with how precision scheduled railroading works in America, or how scheduled railroading works inside of the Russian Federation, they have to keep tight timetables, so there isn't really just the time like you would have on the roadways, which do not exist on a schedule, to go pull over your truck and stop. We're going to check it out. On the Russian railways, which are state operated, they have a very specific sort of a schedule that they're having to meet, and if they don't meet that, they are causing massive backlogs throughout the whole railroad system. That's why once a train leaves a rail yard, it's probably going to be going nonstop, if possible, all the way to its end destination or its end destinations along its entire route. So with that, I hope that it kind of addresses some hypotheticals somewhat well. But before we move on into the rest of our news, because we still have a lot of interesting stuff to cover, I do want to make sure that we talk about Ukraine going under an IRBM missile alert following the Crimean Bridge attack. And a lot of people are wondering, why didn't Russia use it? We had reports earlier in the day that there was some sort of an explosion in Pavlograd, which may have been an IRBM, but that turned out to largely be false, and it was not an IRBM attack. But a lot of people are wondering, why hasn't it happened yet? It has been about a week of humiliation for the Russians, and yet there has been no Oreshnik launched. Apparently, if you end up trying to attack the Russians, just with drones, that is an IRBM level response. If you end up wiping out their entire bomber fleet and also trying to blow up their bridge in the same week, then that's apparently not an Oreshnik IRBM response. And a lot of people are wondering, what's up with it? And what the dog doing? And so, Matthew, what are you thinking about it? And what is everyone else thinking about it as well?
All right. So the big question is, why didn't Russia use it? Because Ukraine put their entire country under an IRBM missile alert earlier today because they perceived the risk of this happening to be so high that they told people to take shelter immediately because Russia was going to try to launch an IRBM, meaning an Oreshnik missile of some sort. So it looks like 49% said they aren't ready for another launch, while 25% said Russia does not have another one to lose, and 13% said Russia didn't want to go there just yet. And I think Russia did want to go there because they've tried to launch an IRBM and they had an issue with it last time, at least allegedly, according to reports we heard. They had an issue with it launching, and it might have actually not been able to launch, or either got messed up before it was able to take flight and actually hit Ukraine. So to me, it sounds like they probably aren't ready for another launch. They're probably so faulty because they do have a very bad track record, of course, with reliability, that they simply weren't able to get it off the ground and actually put it on target. So if that is the case, and once again, the evidence, in my opinion, seems to be leaning that way, that there's something holding them up from launching it on a technical side of things that is going to give Ukraine a bit of an advantage, because the Oreshnik was the big, bad, scary wolf that Ukraine's been scared of the whole time. And also Russia's been hanging that over their head, saying, if you do something too crazy to us, we're going to launch the IRBM again. And everybody's been like, oh my God, the IRBM's looming over their head. It's going to be launched. But it sounds like it might be almost a nullified threat at this point if Russia hasn't used it on any of these attacks so far. Like, for example, the drone attack on the bases, the drone attack, or the underwater drone attack on the bridge today. They have not used an IRBM. And those would be occasions where you would use that if you had it, of course. So they haven't used it, and I think that's pretty telling. But Enforcer, what say you?
The last time they tried to launch one, at least from what we were hearing, it was some sort of an RS-24 YARS, also known as the Topol MR. You actually have probably seen these moving around the Russian Federation before, or at least the pictures of them, because a lot of the Topol MRs are actually mobile based on transport erector launchers, or TELs for short. It appears that at least the last time, from everything that we were hearing, they were supposed to launch this ICBM. This is actually technically an ICBM from around the area of Yekaterinburg, but unlike the name Transport Erector Launcher, it appears that there was some sort of an issue with getting the thing up into the air. We did hear that the Russians attempted to use Blyat Agra to try and get it to launch, but nevertheless it did not work. We do not know why, and we haven't been able to largely get that story was correct, at least at the time, that they attempted to launch and failed to launch the ICBM, and that started to lead a lot of people to believe that there may just not be a lot of operational IRBMs or ICBMs throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation. And we don't really know if that's true or not. We would only be able to find that out in a full nuclear exchange, and I don't really think we want to try that one out. But beyond that, it does appear that there may be some issues, at least at this point, with Russia having operational IRBMs or ICBMs capable of launching. We do know that pretty much all of them, including the Oreshnik, have all been TEL based, and that is why they've been apparently so easy to launch, if you want to put it that way, is because they can literally just drive a vehicle into position, set up the launcher, and then fire it, and then keep the vehicle back on the move again. But it doesn't appear that any of them may be operational. It doesn't appear that they are really ready for any kind of large launches, because there have been a large amount of things that have happened just over the past week that in prior months would have definitely forced the Russians into firing an IRBM at Ukraine, at least according to their own logic, yet they never have. And it may be showing that they do not have any operational IRBMs or ICBMs that are TEL based, at least at this point. I guess you could call
And also, these IRBMs are generally still experimental, to my knowledge. Like, they're still in the experimental stage. They're still trying to figure out how they work, and they're trying to perfect them, at least to my knowledge. Isn't that right?
The Oreshnik is fairly new, but it's just a modification of an older Rubesh platform from the Soviet Union. But they pretty much tried to soup it up with like a turbo and nitrous is pretty much like the modern equivalent of what they did, and it didn't really appear that it may have worked too well. This one, however, has actually been in service since about 2009. But they still appeared maybe have not been able to sort out all of the issues with it. So it appears that at least at this time, this specific transport erector launcher, also called a TEL, is going to be changed to a TED, which is a transport erector dysfunction. So we'll be having to wait to see. Oh dear! Oh dear! Get your hands off my ICBM! How dare you, sir? This is the person who touched me on the TEL. Oh! But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of our news. Because while that is going on at the moment, and we have not seen any kind of an actual launch of a Russian ICBM or an IRBM in response to anything, it is quite clear at this point that the Russians are not doing well at all on anything, and that's time for us to move on up into the second little bit of news. We were able to hear that according to the Ukrainian General Staff on Operation Spiderweb, and I quote, after processing additional information from various sources and verifying it, which took some time, we report that Russia's total losses amounted to 41 military aircraft. Now, I do want to make this clear that losses do not mean completely destroyed airframes. These are airframes that have been damaged significantly enough, either by initial explosions or secondary damage from initial explosions, that that they have pretty much been knocked out of service. The U.S. has been able to say that they independently verified that about 21 bombers have been completely destroyed in the course of the Ukrainian attack, but did not mention any aircraft that may have just been damaged enough to have been taken out of service. This is something that has been a bit of a question today, but I have to bring y'all to something that I found right before the stream that absolutely blew my mind, and that was a satellite picture of the Belaya Air Base. The Belaya Air Base is just outside of the city of Irkutsk, directly within what could be called the Angara River Valley, right here. This base houses a massive amount of Tu-160s, Tu-22M3s, and the like. This is actually one of Russia's more significant strategic bomber airfields in the area of Eastern Russia and within the Eastern Theaters or Central Theaters command zone. We can see here that on the satellite picture, it appears that every single bomber had been destroyed. And it's just shocking to see. You can actually see a decent amount of them have quite literally been reduced to cinder, but every single one of them is showing clear damage. You can see small little grains of particulates and debris from the explosions from the drones at this aircraft, which appears to possibly even be a smaller aircraft. We can't really tell what kind it is, but it's not a strategic bomber-sized aircraft. Maybe an Su-24 or some other kind of a tactical bomber like that. We were able to see that this Tu-95 was destroyed along with this one. This one appears to have literally been reduced into a small pile of ash, along with this one and this one, meaning at least from this count alone, there was 5 Tu-95s that were destroyed, at least in this one picture, along with one smaller tactical-sized aircraft. And then we were able to see on the other side of the tarmac something else that's even more mind-blowing. Tu-160s, which we can see in the satellite picture here taken a few days beforehand, have all been destroyed. We had actually not heard about Tu-160s being destroyed in our initial information. We had only heard that they targeted Tu-95s and Tu-22M3s. And let me go show y'all each of them so that way I'm not just sounding like a fax machine and we actually have the aircraft to show. This is the Tu-95M, which is the ones that were being attacked that we knew about a couple of days ago. These are the Tu-22M3s. We have to make sure to get the right variant of this one because the original Tu-22s were terrible looking. Let me go just really quickly get that to let y'all see the difference between the two. This was the original Tu-22, and this is the modern day T-22 or Tu-22. I think y'all can kind of get the idea why I had to make sure to differentiate the two, because this one was shit, like quite literally, and also its air conditioning system quite literally worked on vodka. I'm not even kidding. And then
Wow.
yeah, that's pretty wild, isn't it? But moving on from that, the one aircraft that is shocking us the most right now is the amount of Tu-160s that have been lost. And the Tu-160 is literally the ripoff of the B-1 Lancer here in the United States. That's why it looks so similar. It's largely the Russian ripoff of that. And we were able to confirm in this satellite picture 1, 2, 3, 4 Tu-160s that appear to have been completely destroyed, at least in this satellite footage alone.
I guess they can call it the Tu-160, the boneyard now, like we call ours the bone. We didn't call this the boneyard.
Man, man, they call this thing the Black Jack. It looks like more so this thing is the Black Death now. It's like this thing got freaking obliterated down there. And just at this one airfield alone, there is 9 aircraft. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 there, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, there's about 9 or 10 aircraft that were destroyed at Belbek Air Base that we were able to confirm on satellite footage alone. And that is just shocking when you put it into that kind of a statement. That is 9 at this one airbase. And this was not the only airbase that was attacked. There was quite a significant number of them that were attacked throughout all of Russia. And if the losses were anything similar to what happened at Belbek, it is very easy to say that 41 airframes actually were completely destroyed in the course of the attack. Not just destroyed and damaged combined, just completely destroyed alone. So I would have to say that this attack was probably one of the most shockingly successful ones that we have ever seen in modern history by any kind of a military force in the 21st century. Not only that, we have also been able to hear that apparently this was not taken well by the Russian Federation's government, or at least there was an unfortunate loss of life that occurred after the incident. We were able to hear that the Lieutenant General, who is the commander of the Russian Air Force, was in Moscow going on a drive one day to go and attend slip and fall school. They said that he was getting really good at it, but they wanted to make sure to to give him a final exam. The exams are always conducted by the FSB in the city of Moscow to make sure that people are not trying to cheat on their slip and fall classes and are making sure to achieve their exam scores honestly, according to the integrity of the academic principle. We were able to hear that the lieutenant general then arrived at the facility, walked up at least 12 stories. It's very important that these slip and fall exams are conducted near to the top of a building, and before he could even make it to the exam, he unfortunately slipped and fell, apparently successfully right out the window, and ended up dying today. And that would be Lieutenant General Sergei Kobylas, who was the commander of the Russian Air Force, was now deceased. So it appears that 48 hours after that attack commenced and ended, that destroyed about 34% of the Russian strategic bomber fleet, we are now hearing that the commander of the Russian Air Force is dead. So it seems as though those two things might be related. I don't really want to go over the top and say that they're clearly related. It's just a complete coincidence that the commander of the Russian Air Force would die right after the most shameful attack that's ever been conducted on Russia succeeded. That would be absolutely a stretch to say that the two things are related, but they might be.
Is this guy related? Is this guy related to Sergei Shoigu, by the way? Why is his a look on his face? It looks like Sergei Shoigu's cousin or something, very, very similar.
Actually, funnily enough, there's no relation. They're completely different people. I think, man, it's that Russian general who's been shit on by Putin for 2 decades phenotype that they got going on, where they all look the same. They look beat down and worn out every single time.
Yeah, I think it is or something. He has the same expression on his face that Shoigu had. So I think that's what it is.
Dude, he has that look on his face that says, "My life is absolutely terrible. If they throw me out a window, it will be a blessing." Kind of a look. Both him and Sergei Shoigu have the same look. Also, it's funny that both of their first names are Sergei. Would make you think that there is something going on there where they might be related a little bit. But anyways, moving on from that. Out of that, a little bit of news in Moscow. We've been able to hear of other major news throughout the Russian Federation. Before we get on into that, though, I want to make sure that we talk about the Russian Air Force commander who apparently succeeded in his slip and fall exam. And did the Russian Air Force commander pay the price for his failure? That's our question to all of y'all tonight. And it appears that many are saying that, yes, he slipped and fell right into it. Others are saying that he was just a little clumsy and happened to fall out of a window. Pure coincidence, of course. Russian commanders at the highest levels falling out of windows, it's a fairly common thing. Never happens in America. It never happens to anyone else in any other country. But in Russia, windows are just the natural predator to Russian commanders. Others are saying that they need a little bit more info, and a few are unsure and undecided. But this poll is practically unanimous at this point. So Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So it looks like 81% of the audience said yes, the Air Force commander in Russia slipped and fell into the price of failure, while 12% said no, he was just clumsy. That was it. He just happened to slip out of a very, very tall window, while 4% said to need more info. And in Russia, there is no such thing as a slip and fall case. There is no collect $200 and there is no pass go. If you slip and fall out of a window, that means you've gotten in somebody's bad graces. And this fellow right here did something very clearly to get in Putin's bad graces. And the funny part is, it was actually Putin's failure why this happened. Because if he wouldn't have dragged this war on for so long and even started in the first place, he wouldn't have to worry about any of this stuff. But he holds the Air Force commander accountable for his airfields getting bombed to hell because they've kept the war going on so long. Ukraine's gotten that aggressive to go after their airfields in mainland Russia. So it's Putin's fault, but he blames everybody around him, and the Air Force commander was the guy who paid the price this time. So I'm with the majority. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I'm with the majority as well. He certainly slipped and fell right into it, and he did pay the price for his failures in regards to protecting the Russian bomber fleet. I don't really know how he was supposed to protect it. I don't know if he was just supposed to step up and intervene, but apparently he had to pay the dearest price for that. But moving on from that and on into the rest of our news in the Russian Federation, we have been able to hear that out in Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, and let me bring y'all to the Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, and specifically to the city of Zholozhy, right here, out here in this specific facility, which is a part of the Zhabolsky motor factory, there was a significant incident that occurred today. OSHA is watching. This may have happened in Russia, but this was so bad, OSHA is actually watching. An explosion and a large fire broke out inside of the Zhabolsky motor plant in Nizhny Novgorod today, and that's specifically within this city of Zhabolsky. I took a little bit of a moment to make sure to geolocate this properly, and this was the exact site.
Короче, вон изнутри все горит. Сверху
Everyone's
всё
gathering
ещё
around. All of the arsonists are having like moths to a flame are coming out to the building. Look, it's on fire, blood. Look, it's burning. The bright lights is so nice.
Пацаны, ЗМЗ все, горим. Ебануться. Дымит прям люто, на Дзержинского уже попахивает даже.
He's saying, I didn't do it. Don't blame me. I'm not responsible. Tee.
He said, they said, man, look at that burning light. It's so beautiful, so bright. It burns so brilliantly. Oh, man, I need to burn down another. I mean, I need to call the fire department and let them, but watching the fire. You know, it's like he's like doing that the whole time. This guy's also getting a notification, the guy filming this part of the video, to not show up to work tomorrow because he's literally watching the workplace burn down in front of him.
Comrade, you've been laid off. Effective immediately, Bliat. Your workstation is burnt to cinders.
Now, you know what actually is interesting about this, Matthew, is I had to go and look into the Zhivolsky motor plant, because it's actually a fairly significant one in Russia. And I was like, is this the biggest facility they have in Russia? And the answer is no, actually. This is only one of them. And by the way, folks, just to give you an idea of the size of this complex, the main manufacturing hall is about 1,500 feet long, which is pretty decently sized. I mean, it's not the biggest thing out there, but it is decently sized. Now, we go down the river to the city of Tolyatti. Now, this one's shocking. This is the massive Zhivolsky motor plant in the Russian Federation. And it's about a quarter of the size of the city, at least in the western area. The main manufacturing hall of this plant is about 1.9 miles long.
Damn, that's huge.
The size of the actual campus itself, I believe, if I remember correctly, was about shy of exactly 3 miles. So this thing is actually putting the Gigafactory to shame, like with how big this thing is. I was actually shocked with that, because if y'all saw what the Zhivolsky motor plant is producing, and let me go show y'all that. Let's see, the Zhivolsky motor plant. Let me go get that here. Let's see. What the hell? I pulled this up earlier. Let's see. Dang.
They're going to call this one the Gigabliat. It's a Giga.
Bliet. Zhivolsky. Why the hell is it not pulling this up? Zhivolsky motor plant. Let me see if it'll pull it up this time. No freaking way. No freaking way, man. I pulled it up earlier. And it had all of their factories, their locations. Hold up. Wait a minute. I found it. This is Autovaz, which uses the Zhivolsky motor plants to be able to produce their equipment. Now, what is interesting about this is the kind of cars these massive factories are producing. They're producing those.
Oh no, they're producing mass shitters.
They're bro. It's a
damn.
Bro. Call the police. It's a mass shitting. It's terrible looking cars. This is absolutely
it's a Yugo.
Dude, just here's the outside of that Toyota plant, by the way, man. The one that's like 2 miles long. That's what the outside of it looks like. But
y'all see the words GM on there? Did you say this is a GM plant or something?
Whoa, wait a minute. What the hell? Wait a minute. Does GM own part of... It doesn't say anything about that up here. Oh, wait a minute. From 2019 to 2020, Autovaz sold Niva cars with Chevrolet branding.
Oh, that's interesting. So I guess they were for a little while, but no longer.
Yeah, that's interesting. But apparently in May of 2022, it was reacquired by the Russian government, and the company is indirectly owned by the Russian state enterprises through Lada Auto Holdings. So it appears that the shitters are getting together to continue their mass shitting campaigns throughout Russia. But look at the cars that they're producing now. Look at that thing.
Oh man, honestly, that almost looks like a Nissan Versa or whatever those things are called, like the little economy Nissan or something. I can't remember what they're called, but it looks just like it, like maybe like a 2 or 3 cylinder motor or something in it. These things are I guess it works, but it's just not great.
But dude, I like how they put on the side of this thing though for the branding, Nasha Lada Granta, which means our Lada Granta. It's like, hell no, it's not our Lada, it's your Lada. It's like I would never claim ownership of that thing ever. But also, you can also see that they're dealing with a little bit of an employee layoff.
Oh wow, it's been happening since 2004 to this has been happening over decades.
Yeah, it's been happening over a long time because no one wants to buy this shit. But look at that freaking factory, dude. This is the one in Tolyatti, like an actual view of the thing. This looks depressing, really.
It really does. And that's like if you imagine like a sweatshop type environment, this is what you'd imagine is something that looks like this.
Dude, the Russians don't even have enough money to pave the roads. Everything's just made of brownish dirt, sludge shit. Like it's like yes, we build our cars to be handled on Russian roads that don't really exist, and we just kind of drive through the mud and dirt all year. It's like that's rough, man. That's rough as hell. Also, let's see. Oh, but they made one into a racing car? No
Oh
way.
no.
No way.
No. Oh man. You know, before the war there was this fella that had a garage in Russia somewhere that would do like videos of like modding out these like Bliatmobiles like this, especially Ladas. And I used to watch it back in the day and think, I didn't think you could like mod a Lada to actually be kind of sporty, but they were really never sporty. And also things always fell apart on them. Like anytime they would drive it, like there'd be just bits and pieces like falling off. It was going down the road and they never seemed phased by it. Like that was like acceptable or like within the norm for those cars. I was like, I guess they're making something out of nothing, I guess, but I wouldn't want to race it.
Dude, this whole car here, man, like the picture was taken maybe in like 2018 or something. Everything's changed. It's sponsored by Lukoil. I would bet you money Lukoil doesn't even have enough money to sponsor a racing team anymore, or even to pay their employees anything. Like it's like, dude, this whole thing is like this is a time gone by since this picture's been taken. Russia isn't even like that anymore. It is freaking crazy though, man, to see that they're taking these little shits and driving them around like they're actually giving them a shot at the racetrack.
Yeah, and there's Rosneft sponsoring those right there. They probably don't have the money to sponsor anything anymore either. Their whole racing team might have been wiped out by this war. Like everybody's a racing team in Russia.
Dude, like, they came in and they're like, okay, folks, we got some good news and bad news. Bad news is our racing teams are going to be canceled. We have no more sponsors. Aw. What is the good news with him? Well, the good news is that we're conducting another race. Oh, what's that? A race to the bottom. Like, it's like, yeah, it's just like, yeah, race to the bottom. But still, this is just, oh, dude, to have factories that big pumping out the worst cars I've ever seen. The only cars I've seen that are worse than these are the ones that come out of China, and they're at like the rock bottom. But anyways, moving on from that, and well, actually, there is one car that's worse, and I forgot where it's from, but it's from somewhere in Africa. I think you remember the one I'm talking about, Matthew. It's like the one, what is it, like made in Kenya or something like that, but the design looks terrible.
I've seen it. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name though.
That one might be the worst. China is a close second, and Russia is just a little bit on up there. Like at least their cars look semi-conventional, but they are sure as hell are not great. I would say that Europe probably makes the best cars in the world. Japan and South Korea make the most reliable cars in the world, and then the United States makes pretty good cars as well. You know, not amazing cars, but they're pretty decent. But anyways, moving on from that and on into the rest of our news after a small car rabbit hole, we were able to hear, and in more international news, that Zelensky has been invited to the NATO summit, according to Secretary General Mark Rutte, who formally invited Zelensky to the NATO summit against the U.S.'s wishes. So it appears that Zelensky will be present. Meanwhile, the United States of America is now giving Iran an ultimatum, as the president has said he will not allow enrichment of uranium by Iran. And I gotta say, I agree with that statement. Hopefully, we do not see that this is reversed tomorrow, because that could happen. Beyond that, however, I would have to say that if we continue with this kind of line of thinking, I can support that and get behind that. I'm generally not a fan of the Islamic Republic of Iran having any abilities to enrich uranium to any degree, because that's putting a lot of trust into them that they will not be enriching uranium to a weapons grade and then hiding it from us somewhere. That is something that I would be fairly concerned about, and I like the idea that we're now giving the Iranians a straight-up ultimatum that they will not be able to enrich any kind of uranium inside of the country indefinitely at this point. I would say that we should push forward with that, and we should just pretty much tell them that they can either give up their enriched uranium right now and purchase it from outside of Iran, or they can end up getting their uranium taken from them by us once we go in there and take care of things and make sure to keep things nice and level. On the other hand, I didn't include this, but I'll tell this to y'all. Iran decided to put this out there. They wanted to become the uranium consortium of the Middle East and provide enriched uranium of fuel grade, not weapons grade, but fuel grade, to Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, as well as, I believe, Oman. and a couple of other countries as well. So pretty much their counter was, in fact, we're not going to stop enriching uranium. We're going to enrich uranium so much, we're going to sell uranium products to everyone else in the region. Which is absolutely insane. I would say that that's just ridiculous and unacceptable, because that's giving the Iranians a pretty big stranglehold over all of the nuclear industries of the Middle East that actually are using it for peaceful means. So it sounds like the Iranians are joking around with us, and we should show them a good joke, a really fun one here soon. But moving on from that and outside the Islamic Republic of Iran, it is now finally time for us to get on into the Ukraine war news. But before we get into that, I do want to take a quick little moment to make sure that we have a nice little segue here. You know, a segue, like those things that were really common back in the day, or at least really popular before they fell out of style. Y'all know those things I'm talking about. These.
They're still in style, by the way. It's made them a lot cheaper and a lot more easy to purchase now. You don't have to go through a dealer and just get it off Amazon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're right there. There's a picture of it right there, that little Segway thing. It's just, they took away the handlebars and it's made it into like a leg bar type thing.
Oh, so it's pretty much just like a big hoverboard.
Basically, but like a more professional version of one, not the Bing Shaling type. This is like the legit type.
Huh. How much do these things cost?
About $450.
Dang, that's I wouldn't, like, it'd be cheaper walking, honestly. But anyways, beyond that, though, I would have to say that we have to make sure to segue on into this little next segment of the news. So we're going to take a little bit of a moment to get to chit-chat with all of y'all, just here for a short little moment. But Matthew, what do we got? What do we got, Matthew?
All right. So real quick, we do have one more poll to address about the topic we just got done talking about. And the poll says, NATO officially invited Zelensky to the NATO summit against the U.S. wishes, at least publicly. And what does this really mean? So about 42% of the audience said the USA secretly approves of Zelensky attending the NATO summit against the public statements they've made so far. And 28% said it will be meaningless without the United States. And 14% said, I need more information about that. And I will say on this one, I have a feeling that NATO invited Zelensky because that was probably what the U.S. wanted them to do. But publicly speaking, they're not going to acknowledge that fact. I think there's a lot of deception going on right now with U.S. foreign policy, with what we actually support and what we don't support versus private versus public information. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect here with that, because Zelensky would not be invited to NATO, which is basically run by the United States, even though we've been making statements kind of disparaging NATO to an extent. We still run it. We're the main funders of NATO for the common pot. And of course, I know there is a 2% guideline for every country, but the common pot is largely funded by the United States. So we're the de facto leader of it. So I would say I'm with the 43%. I think the USA does secretly approve it, and they are slowly moving and at least exploring the idea of Ukraine maybe being put into NATO in some capacity or another. But excuse me, goodness. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Matthew's assessment pretty much entirely and say that the USA most likely is secretly approving of this. Otherwise, Ukraine would not be showing up or be invited in any capacity. But with that, it is time for us to get on into the questions. So what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
All right, and our first super chat of the night is a massive $200 donation from Hawk, who threw in that massive support at the very beginning of the stream. And thank you very much, Hawk, for the massive support, and by far the largest super chat of the night. And we do appreciate that very much. And sadly, for the massive support, we don't have anything to address in the super chat, which makes me feel a little bit bad, because that is massive, and we would love to address at least something that Hawk wanted us to say, but there is nothing there. But thank you very much, Hawk, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And Enforcer, what say you?
That is a massive amount of support, Hulk. And guess what it means, Hulk? We get to eat. We get to eat more hamburgers or pizza or coffee. Well, you drink coffee. We don't get to eat that. But maybe we could. Who knows? Maybe we could put that money towards investing in coffee briquettes that we could eat. I don't really think that'd actually be palatable at all, but we could try. I mean, like, what would stop us from trying? But I got to thank you for a massive amount of support, Hawk. You didn't throw in a comment for us to be able to address. Aw. But beyond that, we are massively appreciative of your support. You are helping this channel to keep rolling. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. We wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. We wouldn't be able to be here right now, getting to cover all of this news that's been going on in the world for weeks, years, months, everything in between, decades even. Maybe we'll be here for like 20 or 30 years. Maybe this becomes our career. I don't even know. But beyond that, I got to say, I thank you massively for the support, Hawk. Also, Matthew, that was a pretty funny one in the chat. He said Hawk be feeding the channel like Papa Hawk. And he kind of is, I suppose. And I got to thank you for the massive support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here tonight, because this is how we make our living and do our job. And everyone else who's been here tonight, the 10.5 thousand people who are still here right now, crazily enough, wouldn't be able to hear all of this news. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. This is folks like you who go out of their way to support a channel that you don't have to, that actually make this channel possible and help us to keep it running. So a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Trism666, who also threw in a massive support of a $100 donation, and thank you very much, Trism, for also that massive support and helping to keep the channel running as well. And Trism said, I heard the Russians were calling this their Pearl Harbor, and wouldn't this be more like the Doolittle raid if compared to World War II actions?
You know what's crazy, Trism? I actually brought up the Doolittle raid when Matthew and me were talking about this when it happened a couple of days ago. Don't you remember that, Matthew?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, I brought up the Doolittle raid. That's actually crazy. You and me are kind of thinking on the same level here. I brought up the Doolittle raid, though, to say that it's... I think I brought up the Doolittle raid in a different way, though. I would generally say not really, because the Doolittle raid really didn't have a lot of impact on anything, because how the Doolittle raid was conducted is that we sent an aircraft carrier near to Japan, and then a couple of B-25 Mitchells took off from the deck of an aircraft carrier, flew over Tokyo, bombed it, and it didn't really cause any major damage at all. And then they just flew on to China, I believe, where they ended up ditching, and then pretty much just, I think they ended up staying in China or joining the resistance against the Japanese on the mainland of China. I'm not really sure how that exactly went, but still, it wasn't really incredibly effective. I would honestly say that this wasn't even Russia's Pearl Harbor, because Pearl Harbor, in terms of the damage it actually did to the U.S. Navy, pales in comparison, crazily enough, to the kind of damage that was just implemented on Russia's bomber fleet. I would say that if I had to compare this to any kind of a surprise attack through history, I would compare it to the surprise attack that the British conducted on Kronstadt Harbor during the end of World War I in the peacetime period. I think that would be the closest thing that I could come up with, or the... Well, the San Nazaire raid isn't even close. I would actually say it would be like the raid on Kronstadt. That's what I would say. But if I had to say in between the two, the Doolittle raid and Pearl Harbor, I would say that this is Russia's Pearl Harbor, because it was absolutely a shock and took Russia by surprise when it happened. And but Pearl Harbor on the onset looked like it really destroyed the U.S. Pacific Fleet, but it didn't at all. It really just kind of dinged them a little. But the attack that was conducted on the Russian bomber fleet truly did decimate them. Well, even more so than decimated, it practically destroyed them. So I would say that it was actually far worse than Pearl Harbor in reality, but if we had to compare them with something, I would say Pearl Harbor most likely. But you know what's shocking, though, interestingly enough, Trism, and I'm sure many people know about this now, because a load of people have been making really, really well-produced videos on this historical side note of the Second World War. But did a lot of y'all know that most of the ships that were sunk at Pearl Harbor would end up actually fighting again in the Second World War? Did y'all know that?
I did not know that, no.
You didn't?
No, I did not.
So we actually went through this huge process after Pearl Harbor to repair, refloat, repair, and then send out every single U.S. warship that was sunk at Pearl Harbor, except for a handful. The USS Arizona was not one of those, because its entire bow had been blown away from the powder magazine detonation. And also the USS Utah was declared to be unsalvageable, so they were also not recovered either. But practically every other battleship in the harbor actually was refloated, recovered, and then sent back out. That was kept classified, I think, up until about 15 or 20 years ago, how exactly that was done, because it was much to the shock of the Japanese that ships like the USS West Virginia and Nevada, which were at Pearl Harbor and were sunk, were actually fighting them again in the Pacific at later dates, and completely refitted and revamped to be even more powerful in terms of firepower than they had been before. Let me go see if I can actually show y'all that, because while I don't want to rabbit hole too much, it is a really interesting thing. Pearl Harbor salvage. Let me go see if I can show y'all this. Let's see. It looks like the United States Navy actually has a lot on it on their own website. But here's a picture right here. And if I remember correctly, I believe that might actually be the Nevada being refloated right there. And you can actually see that still laying low on the water line. But they actually refloated the ship from sitting on the harbor, which is a wildly impressive thing. And they did it to a load of them. They did it to the Oklahoma, the West Virginia, the Utah, the Shaw. You can also see right here what they did to actually lift the Shaw. Let me see. Oh dang! Oh, hang on. They
I
had
have a
like,
feeling I have a feeling that North Korea is probably studying the hell out of these photos right now.
bro. They're like they used a series of cranes. It's like, bro.
They're like, well, we'll have to rule that out. We don't have any cranes, so we'll have to go to the next idea.
Like look at this, man. This is crazy. What you're looking at right here is the USS Oklahoma flipped practically upside down. Because it was hit by so many torpedoes on its, I believe it was the, wait, hang on. It was the port side. The port side was hit with so many torpedoes that the water came in, threw off the ship's stability, and it actually rolled over in the harbor pretty much onto its top side. So what you're seeing right there is a series of cranes that were actually added to the keel for the large part, and from the shoreline, they would just tighten up the cranes little by little every single day, and eventually they were able to right the vessel and then get it on out of there, crazily enough. So they actually did manage to recover this battleship from literally flipping over onto its top side, which is just insane to think about. Let me see if I can show you. Oh yeah, here we go. The ship had been flipped back upright, and then they were going to refloat the vessel after this, and then I think they sent it off outside of Pearl Harbor. They floated it with some tugs all the way back either to Everett in Washington or California somewhere. And then they ended up actually repairing the vessel, refitting the whole thing with even more advanced weaponry. And then I think by late 1942, it was actually ready for service again, and it was sent out into the Pacific to rejoin the Pacific Fleet. Really crazy thing we did. We pretty much refloated every single ship that was sunk during the Pearl Harbor attack. So pretty much in a big picture sense, the Pearl Harbor attack really had actually nothing in terms of impact on the U.S. Navy long term.
Crazy, honestly. Like, yeah, imagine North Korea. They've got a problem that's like way larger than this on their hands, and they can't even handle the one ship. But yet we got all of them back, which is pretty impressive, or at least most of them.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But and also here's the ship after being refloated. So at that point, it actually was able to be moved through the open seas to wherever he needed to go. Just crazy stuff how he did that. Really ingenious, and it was a work of pure miracle. Honestly, folks, there are a lot of great documentaries out there on YouTube about how this worked and how they ended up doing it. And unfortunately, I can't remember all of the channels that did it. I think one of them was Drachtenfell, which made incredibly good documentaries on it, and I would highly recommend that y'all watch those if y'all want to know a little bit more about it. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much once again for the massive support, Trism666, and I hope you liked a little bit of a rabbit hole and the history lesson about the aftermath of the Pearl Harbor attack and how we pretty much got every single ship that was sunk or destroyed in the attack refloated and operational again, except for the Arizona and I think the Utah. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting right back on into the news. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our final one of the segment is going to go to JMP Traveler, who's also a longtime channel legend and puts in a $50 donation, and we do appreciate that very much, JMP, and that's very generous of you, and thank you very much for also helping to keep the channel running. And that JMP says, I think the LSA should pass the hat around to collect some money for a I'm sorry for your loss flower wreath to Putin.
That's actually a pretty good one. You know, actually, that would be pretty funny if we ended up organizing a bouquet every single time something happened in the war that was devastating for Russia, and we ended up trying to mail it to Moscow, to the office of the president of Russia, with a little note card that said, "We are sorry for your loss," every single time something happened. That'd actually be pretty damn funny. I'm not going to lie. Not that we do that, because I don't want to get put on a U.S. List. You know, like I don't want to get put on one of those. But still, it's an interesting idea, JMP Traveler, and I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and coming up with something that I'd actually have to say it's pretty funny to think about. Putin would never receive the flowers, and they would never even make them to Russia in the first place. But wouldn't that be funny as hell if they were able to? That'd be hilarious. But still,
we would get expedited right to the top of the list at that point. They would just go, beat number one now.
Dude, they would say, Stanenko, he's producing all of these drones, but they sent us a bouquet that said, sorry for your loss. That is a humiliation of my honor. Poison them. Like, it would be like, poison them with anthrax or something like that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. Thank you once again for the support, though, JMB Traveler, and I like the humor. That was a good one right there. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the remainder of our news. And we have some left. Moving on into the Ukrainian front lines, we were able to see that the Ukrainians did hit Rilisk once again. Take a look at this. I guess you could say that the Russians are taking a little bit of a risk to be here. Get it? It sounds like risk.
That dad joke right there was just crazy, man. I couldn't even process it.
Man, you're trying to blow smoke into my freaking head, man. Oh.
This could need to be the realest street in Chicago.
Bro, this is Chirac right here.
It really is. Honestly, that's how Chirac looks and sounds like at night, so you really couldn't tell the difference.
Bro, Russians be out here on O-Block, a.k.a. Rilisk, taking fire from the ops. Like, it's from, like, the real, the real Hood disciples or whatever, a.k.a. the Ukrainians or whatever. Anyways, moving on from that.
Bending corners on 65th.
Man. Man, you know what I mean. But anyways, bah.
Oh, блядь.
What to your mind? Bro, that car alarm was actually had a sick beat going, man. It went. I was like, bro, that went hard. About as hard as that attack down the street. And that's seeing the clip right there. But it appears that Rilisk was hit again. Meanwhile, we also got to see that the Ukrainians in the 225th Separate Assault Regiment cleared a Russian position in Koisk. Take a look at this. This thing is filled with park, or as we call them, orcs.
I have to say, I don't like this army because it's port filled. You know the reference. Please tell me you know the reference.
Legalized comedy.
Yeah, that's that guy, but the reference was a little bit. I can't discuss the reference here on the stream, but I think many people will get the reference.
Oh my god, did you see that? Did you see this? Look at this. Dude, he like threw in like a hand grenade size. Look at this. He throws in a hand grenade sized explosive. We couldn't even really see it. And this is what it did. Like, holy smokes.
Oh, crap. They must have had some ammo in there or something.
I mean, he threw in something small, but, who said that big things don't come in small packages? I mean, whoa, look at that explosion. We see them dropping in something else and laying low. That wasn't even a big explosion right there. So it appears that he just got. Did he just get an energy drink? Did he just get a sip of like a Red Bull or something right here? Apparently he did.
He said, "Here's a C4 to go with your grenade."
Dude, he said, "Red Bull gives you wings," and then that Ukrainian guy said, "It doesn't give me wings. It's giving the Russians wings." As he like ran back up with another bomb to throw it in a dugout, and there it goes. There goes another one.
What if Red Bull sponsored like a Ukrainian brigade and said, turn that into like one of their like extreme action sports commercials or something? That would be crazy.
Dude, that would be legitimately crazy. But the Ukrainians are pretty professional, man. When they're relaxed enough in the middle of bombing a giant Russian outpost, they just take a sip of a Bang energy drink or something like that. Or a Celsius.
That guy handed it to him and said, "Hey, you want a Bang?"
Man, they said, the Bangs for the Russians are very different from our Bangs.
Oh man, the commanders give them Bang all the time, but they're not happy.
Oh, bro, and there's the outro here. Look at that. Oh, man, what a sick outro.
Oh, scary.
Man, bro, they pulling out the kind of energy. But moving on from that, or more so, that's that right there, that outro, the energy that it's giving that Sean Diddy Combs energy, but after you notice that the stairs are covered in baby oil and there's no way out kind of energy. That's pretty scary right there. Terrifying, honestly. But moving on from that and on out of that clip and further on down into our location unknowns, we were able to see that Russia is running so low on equipment, they're now using 60mm North Korean mortars. You would believe that I'm kidding until you see the builder's plaque on this thing, and it's from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
I could kind of tell, not just because of the badge, but also because of that rusty like fastener thing over there on the right. It's like, is this thing really that new? Why is it all rusty already?
These things have been in storage for like maybe 60 years or so. These things are not new. Like these things are very, very old. Hell, these things were actually used in the 60s. That's how old they are. So pretty ancient stuff. I also like how there's these broken, rusted out AKs all around it, and also an office chair over there in the corner.
Also, someone said in the comments, "Little Rocket Man going international." Yeah, he kind of is. Honestly, at this point, he's turned into an ICBM.
Dude, I like how they're I wish we could actually translate their builder's plaque because it sure as hell has a lot on it. And it's very interesting. Also, why in the world did they scratch out the serial number like it's like straight out the hood or something, like they're scratching out serial numbers from
Oh,
like mortars and firearms and stuff?
this is one of these ghost artillery mortar things right here. They don't want nobody to trace it back. It's like it's literally got your name all over. It's like it's not like scratching out the serial numbers going to keep things secret.
Yeah, it's like, I wonder where it came from. Maybe in North Korea? Nah, the language doesn't give it away enough. We really need the serial number to track this back, you know? It's like that's just stupid that they had scratched it out. And also, we got to see its entire kit right here, too. The cleaning kit, of the repair tool set. I mean, literally everything. It came with the whole 9 yards. So it is a full-on North Korean mortar with all the trimmings.
What's up with the bee's nest on a stick that they've got in that toolkit over there? You see one that it's like a hornet's nest on a stick. What is that?
It inspires the men to work harder, lest they get the bees.
Yeah, really. What is that? Seriously, though, is that like a sponge or something? Why does it actually look like a hornet's nest?
So it is a sponge of a sort. I believe, if I remember correctly, there's a dry sponge and a wet sponge, and you use the dry sponge to. Well, actually, you use the wet sponge to douse any of the cinders inside of the barrel, and then you use the dry sponge to get all the moisture out, so that way you can load it up with the next round. This thing is ancient. Like, this thing is fairly mortars use that still to this day, but it's a little bit interesting to see that. Also, this one looks slightly used over here, like the one that's kind of like darker brown. Like that thing looks like it's been used a bit.
Yeah, it does. Really, it looks like it's been put through the ringer.
Man, honestly, man. But moving on from that and on to our next bit of Location Unknown news, we also got to hear that Matt Yara has now become the commander of the unmanned systems forces of the armed forces of Ukraine. So he's become the commander of an entire branch of the Ukrainian army now, and it specializes in drone warfare. So pretty interesting to see. Matt Yara has made his way all the way up through the ranks. They started as an impromptu drone organization made of civilians, and then they became a part of the 38th Marine Brigade. Then all of that was detached, and they ended up becoming the unmanned systems forces of the armed forces of Ukraine, and he was just the commander of one of the units in that force, and now he's actually the commander of all drone forces in Ukraine. So pretty interesting and awesome to see, because we've literally watched this guy and followed his story over the entirety of the war. Moving on from that, we also got to hear of a peon at work. That thing sure as hell is not a peon. I mean, that's one of the biggest artillery pieces active in the war, but still pretty cool to see a little picture of it, and the pic does go hard. We also got to see the Russian casualty report. It's not the address from the president, it's the casualty report. I mistyped that. But holy moly!
Holy moly. Oh my God. Look at that. 12 planes. We got no Bobcats, but we did get the 12 planes on there. Miss Dusa said that's the third highest daily loss, too. And the top loss dates were in February and March of 2022, which was all the way back near the beginning. So this is a historic day indeed. A hell of a hit.
And Ms. Deasick, here are the records, was able to share with us some additional information. As plus 12 aircraft is the third highest daily loss, the top loss dates were in February and March of 2022. Tank losses are back, and all categories are at or above the 7-day averages. Not only that, but an update, 41 aircraft is by far the highest loss of the war. The previous high was plus 16. On March 13th of 2022. And the Russians have been having bad days all around. All around, I tell you. As we were able to hear that 1,100 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 8 APCs, 145 supply trucks, 7 main battle tanks, 1 for every day of the week, 48 artillery pieces, 126 drones, 1 MLRS, 12 aircraft just today, not including the 41 from yesterday's report, 1 anti-aircraft system, and that was all. No Bob gets skid steers, sadly, but I think the losses in every other category made up for that, and then some. Moving on from that, though, and on into the remainder of the news that we have in that grand old world at large, it's time for us to get down into Crimea. The Russians, of course, as I said, are running out of equipment, and the North Koreans, They've always been known for their excellence. There is a Russian country inspired by that Joseon excellence, and that is the Russian Federation. They use nothing but the finest Ukrainian North Korean Koksan SPGs, because nothing says Russia like a North Korean shitter. And we can see them driving around. It appears that the filter hasn't been changed out in about the entire era of North Korea's existence. It is literally belching more smoke than a steam engine would.
So much for going green. This thing's like just going up straight up pollution.
Dude, North Korea is going green, but it's going green in the face from the toxic fumes coming out of the side of the vehicle.
Man, North Korea is the enemy of the planet at this point. Mother Nature is North Korea's enemy. This thing is like polluting the planet.
Dude, it doesn't take a lot to know that, man. Just go look at any city like Chongqing and look at like the coal dust in the water, and you know that they're not really a friend of the planet or anything, you know? Let me show that, because I always get a laugh out of that when you look at North Korean cities. Like, they literally look like they're about to go because of how badly polluted they are. Where the hell is Chongqing? Here we go. Yeah, look at that coal dust. Oh my
yeah,
God.
that's what I'm talking about. They're doing good things for the land out here. Like, North Korea got a hold of this land and they said it looks so nice and green. And I know the Russians hate trees, but the North Koreans just hate like pretty much everything. Like the dirt's going to turn like straight up black.
Like, look at this.
It's terrible.
Look at this, dude. There's literally little like islands of like coal that have like formed in this river from like the offshoot of it.
That'd probably be good to run somebody's car off of, I'm sure.
Bro, when you go through these rivers, you sit there and go, man, North Korea is so beautiful. Look at the scenery. You know, something like that. It's terrible. And every single building, it's the law in North Korea that every other building cannot have an actual roof. Like, the roof has to be missing, and you just get rained on if the rain comes through. Like, look. Like, we'll find another building with a missing roof here. Easy. Watch. Let's see here. We're sliding on down. He slid on God. Let's see here. Eventually we'll find one. Let's see. We're around in the corner. Oh, there it is. Another building with a missing roof. Again, like, it's just, they're everywhere. I don't really know why either. It's like, if North Korea is building only the buildings they need, why do so many of them have missing roofs? Why is that the case? It's because they don't have money and they broke ass po. But man, I just like looking around North Korea's industrial yards, because when you look at it, you just realize how blessed we are to be in the United States of America and live here in the West. Is that a freaking tarp?
Can't really tell.
I can't really tell either. Holy smokes. Dude, whoever's working in this building, they're probably dead from, like, whatever's inside of there. There's another one with a missing roof. Just so much stuff, man, that's like... It's
hard to believe somebody can be beyond miso book. It's like, if you've gone beyond the point of even needing the miso book, it's like you're in a really bad place. Like, I don't even think they would want to run commercials like that in a place like this.
No, I don't think they would. And it's just crazy, dude. Like, looking at the ground, like, the ground has been made so toxic around here. Nothing grows. Like, nothing grows at all. All of this is just bare dirt if it isn't directly covered in coal dust. It's just insane.
Just awful. Just terrible, honestly.
It looks like hell, honestly. It really does. And then you come over here, and then these are the shanty shacks that the workers live in. And then I guess they all cross this one bridge on... Actually, they do. You can actually see them all down there, crossing the bridge on foot to make it into the ironworks that they live in. And then they live right next door to it, and they're never allowed to leave that area. So all they know is that industrial shithole right there. That's really sad, actually. Anyways, moving on from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and on back into the news at large, considering that the Russians are using a lot of the stuff made in that hellhole. We also got to see that the Russians were getting hit by Ukrainian fiber optic drones around the area of Lehman. Take a little look. I'm about to sound like
the
that.
Ukrainians are bringing fiber to every town they can.
Man, and it's the kind of fiber that gets your stomach churning, because once you see the fiber coming your way, you're scared shitless. But also, man, I like
broadband fiber.
Bro, look at that dog over there, man. That dog knew what was up. He was getting out of the zone. He was like, it's about to happen.
The dog's the smartest one in the bunch.
Bro,
look at that.
Oh, Bliat. Bro,
Vadim
and the gang.
Awful.
Bro, Vadim and the gang were going on a road trip right there. And we see another one.
Goofiest looking vehicles, too. Those like Scooby-Doo vans.
Bro, the front was caved in on that thing. Anyways, that's the end of the clip right there. And moving on further down the way and into Pokrovsk, we also get to see some Russian vehicles getting hit down here. Oh, we're going to be muting that.
Oh, some of that 8-bit classic arcade beats.
That copyright-free shanty music.
Oh, dear. I see somebody scooting off over there on the side. I don't know what he's on, but he's scooting.
Bro, he was speeding. Well, that's the end of the clip. And moving on from that and on into our next one further down the way near Kurakove, we also got to see a Russian BM-21 Grad getting hit. Oh, they're running for it. What are they running from? Oh, looks like a little impact hit the side of the truck.
Running from their troubles.
Here in the Russian Federation, they try and destroy their trucks to find any valuable minerals inside the metals, and then they eat them to stay alive. Dude, I still love that, like, North Korean propaganda clip, man, that was translated, and they're like, in America, they shoot up heroin and buy guns. You know, it's like, man, it's like...
I love it how that guy sounded like he had cotton balls in his mouth the whole time he was doing the skit.
Yeah, I know, man, like, and also, like, the way he would say stuff, man, he'd be like, there are no birds. There are no birds here because they've all been eaten, except for these, and these will be eaten on Tuesday. It's like, why do you have to say it?
Sit around on the expensive Dell computers, watching only and hoping.
Dude, honestly, that sounded a lot like him, man. It's honestly kind of funny how that guy did the whole thing. But anyways, we did get to see them knocking out a Zoo Park radar complex today as well. Oh, look at that. They're about to hit it. Zoo Park. Oh, like Zoolander. Oh, like that movie with Ben Stiller in it. Oh, it's famous. It's famous. It's a great movie. I've never seen it, but it's a great movie. Great movie. Moving on from that, though, and down into Theodosia, we also got to hear of some ongoing air defense activity in the area. We also got to hear of ongoing air raids at Chornomorsk as well, as air sirens abounded around the area. We haven't been able to hear of any attacks or explosions since then, but we did get to hear that apparently they were under attack. And moving on from that news and on into the city of Kyiv, it is time to listen to the despotic dictator Volodymyr Zelensky smack his thing on a piano key. I'm just kidding. We're moving on into the speech. But, nevertheless, here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1095 of the news. So without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Дорогі українці, зараз на Сумщині лікарі надають всю необхідну допомогу людям, які були поранені російським ударом. Реактивна артилерія проти звичайного міста. Просто по вулиці росіяни ударили. По звичайних житлових будинках. Покидьки. На жаль, 4 людини були убиті. Саме цим ударом мої співчуття рідним. Майже 30 людей поранені, і серед них 3 дітей. Протягом дня майже по всій території нашої держави були повітряні тривоги, були удари. Фактично, не було днів без убивств увесь цей час, поки Сполучені Штати Америки, Європа, інші світові суб'єкти вимагають від Росії припинити вогонь та домовлятись, щоб закінчити війну. Чітка налаштованість Росії на війну, і вони цю свою налаштованість доводять і ударами, і своїми заявами. Все це аргументи, щоб були нові санкції проти Росії, жорсткі санкції. Я хочу подякувати всім американцям, всім європейцям, які підтримують такий шлях примусу Росії до миру. Це надзвичайно важливо. Путін не змінює свою поведінку, коли не боїться наслідків своїх дій. Росія має відчувати, що таке війна. Росія має нести збитки від війни. Вони повинні реально відчути, що продовження війни матиме для них руйнівні наслідки. Сьогодні у мене були різні наради щодо нашої міжнародної комунікації. Ми працюємо з нашими партнерами постійно заради того, щоб припинення вбивств було забезпечено і щоб Україна мала захист і в подальшому. Дав сьогодні деякі доручення міністру закордонних справ України та міністру оборони України. Зараз у Вашингтоні вже працює українська делегація на чолі з Юлією Свириденко, першою віце-прем'єркою, разом з нею керівник Офісу Єрмак, команди уряду та Офісу. Там багато зустрічей у графіку на цей тиждень. Наша мета – реалізувати якнайшвидше все те, про що домовлялись з президентом Трампом: припинення вбивств, реальний мир, економічна взаємодія з Америкою. Ми пропонуємо Сполученим Штатам Америки цілком конкретні та взаємовигідні угоди. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає. Провів сьогодні детальну нараду з нашими військовими: Олександр Сирський, Андрій Гнатов, Михайло Драпатий та міністр оборони Рустем Умєров. Михайло Драпатий зосередиться виключно на бойових питаннях і призначений командувачем об'єднаних сил, щоб міг займатися фронтом. Фронтом на 100%. Що стосується системи сухопутних військ, особливо таких завдань, як тренування, підготовка, зміни в ТЦК і все, що з цим пов'язано, цим буде займатися інша людина. Сьогодні ж погодили призначення Олега Апостола командувачем ДШВ, а Роберта Бровді командувачем Сил безпілотних систем. Це теж більше зосередження на бойових питаннях. Успішний досвід найкращих бригад має бути масштабований в усій армії. Вадим Сухаревський призначений заступником командувача оперативного командування «Схід». І першочергова задача для нього – модернізація цього командування. Ігор Скибюк призначений заступником начальника Генштабу. І ще кілька речей. Зустрівся сьогодні з Рафаелем Гросі, керівником МАГАТЕ. Говорили про очевидні безпекові проблеми, які створені російською окупацією. Це ситуація на Запорізькій атомній станції. Ми робимо максимум, щоб не допустити жодних радіаційних чи інших інцидентів. На жаль, російська окупація створила проблематику, якої до того в світі ніхто не знав. Дякую всім в світі, хто допомагає нам тримати цю ситуацію все ж таки в рамках безпеки. І як би це не було складно, ми маємо повернути нормальний український контроль над станцією. Говорили також про енергетику в Україні, про нашу атомну генерацію. Я вдячний за готовність допомагати із добудовою нашої Хмельницької АЕС, із розвитком видобутку урану в Україні. Сьогодні ж разом з Оленою ми зустрілись з прекрасними українськими дітками, яких нагородили новою нашою відзнакою, державною відзнакою «Майбутнє України». Це нагорода саме для дітей. Дітей, які врятували життя іншій людині, які допомагають захищати Україну, які проявили таку особисту силу і принциповість, що і не скажеш, що це діти. Сьогодні перші 20 нагород. І хай це буде нашою державною традицією. Робимо все для України, пишаємось нашими людьми, дякуємо кожному, хто допомагає. І завжди приємно окремо подякувати Службі безпеки України. Молодці! Слава Україні!
Ram
And
Slava.
Hiram Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1195 of the news from around the world. And I gotta say, folks, it has been one hell of a news day, that's for sure. It took us about 1 hour and 50 minutes to be able to cover all of this from top to bottom. And I gotta say, what a news night it was. What a news night. What a news night. We had a peak viewership here tonight of 12.1 thousand people. And over the course of this stream so far, in 1 hour and 50 minutes, we have had 76,000 people here watching this stream. Wowee. That is a lot of people. A lot of people. A massive amount of people. And we thank you all for being here tonight. We thank you greatly. And I hope that y'all have enjoyed so far. If y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we're about to be moving on into the second segment. It's called the question segment, where we get to talk to all of y'all. And we love to get to talk to all of y'all. And of course, we'll be addressing the super chats first and the live chat second, as we have done every night by tradition. But before we move on, I want to make sure to address one thing that someone brought up, and maybe it's a fair critique, but it's something that we cannot change, so I'm going to make sure to address it. RG in the chat said, I like the news. I like your news, guys, but every time someone throws in a super chat for support, and you, Enforcer, say like 3 times every time that if it wasn't for folks like you, it gets so annoying. Well, I thank you for your input. However, there's a reason why I do that. One, this is our business. We live and die off of this channel's success. And two, most of our ability to be able to be here every night is because of those very people that are throwing in that money that they don't have to throw in. We are very appreciative of those people because quite literally, without them, we aren't able to pay our electrical bills to be able to keep this stream running, or our internet bill to keep the stream running, or we're not able to pay our rent, or we're not able to eat at night. So we owe them everything. We owe those folks absolutely everything who are supporting this channel. We go out of our way to say that nobody has to, and yet these people who are supporting this channel tonight, and the people who have been supporting this for hundreds, if not thousands of days, they are the ones who are really making this channel possible. We can yap all we want, but yapping doesn't actually pay the bills. Those folks are right there. And we are always massively appreciative and thankful to each and every person who does support the channel and goes out of their way to do so. I know it sounds canon rehearsed to say, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to be here. But there's not really many different variations or ways to say that sort of a thing. And I want the folks to know who are supporting this channel, we are massively appreciative and thankful to them. It is not an exaggeration that if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be able to complain right now about me saying that, because we wouldn't have a show if it wasn't for them. So I always want to make sure that we go out of our way to give them a huge thanks and a big bravura and a big sign on for every single person who's supporting, even if it's just $1, because if it wasn't for them, it truly wouldn't be possible for you to be here in the live chat right now complaining about that, or for me to be able to be on air and talking about the news at all. So I hope that kind of addresses that well to some people who might get annoyed by that. I'm sorry, that will never stop, because we always want those folks to know that we are actually appreciative of their support. They never have to support the channel, and they go out of their way to, and we are massively honored and appreciative of that. And that's what we mean every single time. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And it's time for us to move on into those questions themselves. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night. It's time to get to the remaining super chats and also the live chat questions as well. And you might have noticed we're already fresh out of polls, so it's time to jump right into our super chat questions. And our first one here goes to Andrew Kruger, who puts in a $40 donation. And thank you very much, Andrew, for that $40 support. And we do appreciate that very much. And Andrew said, do you think Ukraine has the ways and means to hold the Sumy region given the advances of the Russians despite casualties?
I would say that they have the means, but I believe that the Russians are going to take a decent amount of ground before they're actually able to stop them. It appears that this offensive did hit in a weaker area where there was not a large amount of defenses by the Ukrainians, and this naturally means that they're going to be making ground before the front is stabilized and stopped. But at this point, it is quite clear that no matter the side, the front will eventually be stabilized and stopped. We have never seen a sweeping offensive since late 2022 by either side. It's been a very bloody and slow offensive, if one is ever achieved, and it's pretty much been a Pyrrhic victory every single time since the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023. So with that in mind, the front line will eventually get stabilized in Sumy. It's just that for now, the Ukrainians are having to relocate troops and resources into that area to be able to try and conduct that defensive. So that would be my answer to that question. But I gotta thank you for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to keep this channel running, and we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. It is something to say that people continue to support this channel and make it a reality every single day, and you're one of them, Andrew Kruger, and I gotta thank you for always being here. You've been an old guard and a channel legend of this Lee Spring Army, and I gotta thank you massively once again for continuing to be here with us and asking the questions that really count, because that actually is a pretty good one right there. And so a huge thank you to you once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Marion Deemert, also a longtime channel legend who's been around for a very long time on the channel and puts in a $30 donation. And thank you very much once again, Marion, for that support. And it's good to see you once again. And Marion said, Slava Ukraine and Hirom Slava.
And Slava Ukrainian, Hurram Slava. And thank you so much for the massive support, Marion Deemert, and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to say those words, and we wouldn't be able to eat at night, which is something that we mentioned earlier. And eating is important to me. I like to eat. Matthew likes to eat as well. We actually had some delicious meals today. We didn't really have a lot yesterday, which is kind of funny. Because to tell y'all what we were doing yesterday, we were getting free pretty much. And so we had to get all of our stuff and move it to somewhere else. I'm not going to get into too much of the details of that, but we were going all day yesterday trying to get that done and then get the U-Haul back to where it belongs. So we did it. It's finally done, but it took a toll on Matthew and me. We got absolutely worn out yesterday doing that. Matthew and me are extremely sore tonight. Because of all the lifting of the boxes and everything that we were having to do. And some of those boxes were pretty heavy. I would say that some of them were getting up towards maybe like 100 pounds each. And there was a decent amount of them. So we were really having to like shuttle all over the place yesterday, but we finally got it done, and we finally got it all into the storage unit and everything and locked her up and all that. And got back over here, went to sleep, woke up today. We're extremely sore. Both of us are. But if it wasn't for folks like you, Marion Deemert, we would have never been able to do that. We wouldn't have been able to be sore, and we wouldn't be able to be on here tonight. And so I gotta say, a big thanks to you once again, because we really do need to eat after something like that, because that was very strenuous on the muscles, and we've got to make sure to regrow them by not eating the birds, which we're going to be eating on Tuesday. But with that, hope that does address that well. And also, I saw someone say, it's full of railroad spikes. Actually, funnily enough, it was mostly firearm stuff, a lot of ammunition on my end. So, loads of that. We had to move that around and make sure that it got into a nice air-conditioned or temperature-controlled locations, that way, humidity and temperature changes doesn't end up, getting to the ammo, because that actually can really do it to one if you put them in a bad place for long. So we had to make sure to put it in a nice place. But those boxes were freaking heavy. Matthew can tell y'all, like, it would be like the smallest looking little box, and that thing would be like 50 pounds just from the ammunition inside. It was tough. It took a while. But luckily we got it all to where it needed to be. So hey, and Matthew, I guess you could say, Matthew, like you're saying in the chat, you don't have soft hands anymore, boy. You got hard hands. You got calloused hands from all that work, man. You got calloused hands.
As I was lifting with each box, every single box I lifted, I slowly got a deeper and deeper voice of, oh man, I got these rough hands, these rough hands. Honestly, though, moving boxes does make your hands pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie, like it actually did. Like my hands got all like mangled up from those boxes because they were so heavy. But yeah, that was a doozy, like moving those boxes like that. A real doozy right there.
Man, every single time I picked up and dropped a box onto the floor, my shirt started getting a higher shade of high-vis yellow. Hard hat started slowly forming on my head, and then I started talking more and more like this and drinking a damn Coors Light and saying, look at you, boy, you don't have a damn day in your life. You ain't done shit. I work 170 hours in the factory every damn week. You look at you got soft hands, boy. You got soft hands. You ain't worked a damn day in your life. Every single time I picked up a box, it started getting more like that. Next thing you know, folks, I'm going to be working in construction. Anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one. Big thanks to you once again, Marion Deemert, for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling.
Yes, indeed. And our next one here goes to LD Rizzo. And LD puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, LD, as well, for that support and helping keep the channel running as well. I don't see a comment attached, but we do appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the support. There was no comment attached, but we greatly appreciate your support in helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep the fine-standing folks at the Enforcer channel working every single day. And I gotta thank you once again for that incredible support, because if it wasn't for folks like you support us at the Enforcer channel, we wouldn't be able to continue our great efforts at journalism every single day. So a massive thanks to you once again. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Darren Quinn. And Darren puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Darren, as well, for that support. He said, I've been saying for over 2 years, that bridge, old KERCH, is coming down, tumbling down, and yeehaw.
I gotta say, it almost came down today, a little bit off. It didn't come all the way down, but it kind of came down a little bit. At least its pride came down a notch, I suppose. But I do thank you for supporting. I think.
Oh wait, it says temporarily closed.
Oh, how dare you, sir? Temporarily closed.
Oh, it's closed again. I think it was reopened though, as I heard traffic was going earlier. So I think this might be a new temporarily closed bridge thing here.
No wheelchair accessible entrance.
Of course not. You think they don't have the ADA in Russia?
Man, the Russians said, oh, you are in the wheelchair and you want to cross the bridge? Yes, no crossing for you. Why did they send them back to Siberia, blade? It's like, what the hell? Let's see, what are the reviews?
If my mother had wheels, she would have been a bike.
Bro, someone just put a 1-star a month ago. Their name
that
is...
was that truck driver that got caught up in that little scheme.
Bro, I didn't like it. Let's see. Beautiful scenery, tons of drones in the area though. Normal bridge, beautiful bridge, and that's actually that's like in Russian. It's kind of stupid. But let's see. Great bridge, spectacular. What do the reviews on the Golden Gate Bridge look like, speaking of which? Because those are some really stupid-looking reviews, and I don't know if that, like, shapes up compared to other famous bridges around the world. I'd say this looks a lot better, in my opinion, than, you know, the KERCH Bridge. The KERCH Bridge looks like garbage. Anyways. Yeah, look at that. Look at that right there. Like, these reviews are actually, like, sincere, instead of just being like, great bridge, big bridge, wonderful bridge. Like, let's see. Dang, man, these people are like writing essays to the Golden Gate Bridge.
These people praise the bridge. Like this bridge to them, it means a lot more than you think. This bridge right here is life.
Dude, you better watch out, man, because you're going to have someone like Kenneth Copeland come out here in a minute and go, praise the bridge! We need money for the bridge! You know, like, you're going to have someone like...
text 11111. If it moves on your heart to donate today to buy a brand new private jet, then donate now.
You know what the bridge said? The bridge said you need to tithe to the bridge. You need to give the money, because if you give the money, your bridge crossings will be easier. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. Like, but anyways, you know something else, man, that I just got... I have an irking issue, man, with the Star Trek world. I never understood why the Starfleet headquarters was right at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge. I never understood why that would be the place they would put it, you know?
Because, you know, it was like the Starfleet Academy, the Starfleet headquarters. It was like the Navy. So they just like, I guess they put it next to the water to simplify its I guess its connection to the Navy. Or maybe it's a location to Alcatraz, maybe.
I don't know. Honestly, I just never understood that, though. I was like, why in the world put it there? It's like, wouldn't you put it, like, somewhere else rather than San Francisco? Like, you know, like, somewhere that actually would have had, like, political importance at the time. It would have been technically founded in that universe. You know, like, Washington, D.C. or New York City. I feel like New York City would have just been a better fit, considering that the UN headquarters is there. It's like, wouldn't that make more sense for, like, Starfleet headquarters to be there? The truth is, folks, is that they went with San Francisco because of budgeting reasons. Because San Francisco wasn't that far from the film studios in L.A. compared to Washington, D.C. or New York City. So that's why they put it there. But it's still...
Hell, they should have put it in Las Vegas and had the USS Enterprise rolling down the strip.
Bro, they should have put it there and then had like one of the captains like, come on, give me like a 36 black, yeah, you know, something like that. Like, bro, that would have gone over well, man. That would have gone over well. Oh man. Anyways, to that. I hope that does address that well. Still, a very interesting bridge for sure, the KERCH Bridge, and I think it's going to be coming down soon, at least with how today went. But with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. And with that, it's time. Oh, wait a minute. George Takei, the guy who made his entire life after Star Trek hating on William Shatner, actually picked the San Francisco spot. He picked that. Interesting. Honestly, I didn't know. I didn't know that actually. I thought it was just kind of like a pick for budgeting reasons. Because
Rumor has it he went out here and saw the location near the Golden Gate Bridge and said, "Oh my, this would make a great place for Star Trek headquarters."
dude, wait, no, man. I know what he did, dude. He was on Highway 101 and he looked out right over here and he went, "Oh my!" And then he like they made it here. Like that's what he did. But
That was a
let's
good
see.
idea.
But y'all know something that's interesting here, folks. Another thing that's interesting to further my idea that it was all for budgeting reasons. Don't y'all find it funny that every single time that Star Trek would come to the present day in any of their movies, like when the movies were made, and they would end up traveling back in time to the present day, they were always in LA or San Francisco. Did y'all notice that? Like they never would be anywhere else in the world. They literally would always wind up in LA or San Francisco. It was for budgeting reasons, I can promise y'all that. Because the film studios were in LA, the stages that they were using for their shows. So literally all they do is they just take everyone out into the streets outside of the studios and then film everything out there. It's a lot cheaper that way instead of taking them, to say, like the East Coast or something, where you have to take everyone, pay for them to get out there, pay for their like room and board and all that, and then also pay for the crews to operate out there, which would make the production costs insanely expensive for the budget that they had. So, a little bit. Also, Colt had said Chicago once. Chicago. Wait a minute. When did they go to Chicago in any of the shows? Like when? Can we get an answer to that? That would be interesting to know because I don't ever remember them going to Chicago. But I no, I'm not doubting that it didn't happen. I'm just saying that I don't know the episode. But let's see. Oh, dude, remember that one time that they went to San Francisco and there was like the homeless camps and everything?
Wow, like in Star Trek?
Yeah, remember, dude? Like they were walking around and there's like giant homeless camps in the streets and people were like
I don't
on
remember
drugs.
that.
You don't remember that? Dude, remember
No.
it was from Deep Space Nine, remember? And it was when I forgot his name, dude, but he was the main character of that show. He ended up becoming like the main head of like some sort of like a certain, it was like some kind of a civil rights movement thing for like the homeless people or something, and became the face of it, and he ended up getting like the history books in the future because of what he did in the past accidentally or something like that. It was let's see, yeah, the Bell Riots. Don't you remember that, Matthew? The Bell Riots thing that they did in San Francisco. It was a really interesting episode.
I don't remember
actually.
any of that.
Dude, I gotta pull up. Let me see here. Star Trek homeless camps. Because I gotta be able to find it that way. It was like a very distinct episode. Homeless camps. The sanctuary districts is what they were called. Now I remember all this. You should be able to remember this, dude. It's from Deep Space Nine. There it is. The homeless
I
camp.
kind of recognize it a little bit, somewhat.
And what's interesting, dude, is that it was apparently supposed to be in like the 2030s or something that this episode was based. Like it was supposed to be in the future by a couple of decades. So it was like, honestly, man, they kind of got that on the ball because, as you all know, there is a pretty significant homeless epidemic really everywhere across America at this point. So it's really interesting to see that they pretty much predicted the whole tent city thing that really caught on after the whole Wuhan whirlybird thing and really became a huge issue way back then. And it really wasn't even like an actual prediction. It was just more so the plot device of showing like the troubles, the trials and tribulations that humanity went through to get to the Star Trek world. A little bit interesting with that as a side note. But dude, it's crazy, man, because look, you can see like a little still right there. By the early 2020s, there was a place like this in every major city in the United States. It's like that aged like fine wine,
crazy.
Honestly, man. Like
That aged badly, actually.
Well, man, it aged like fine wine because it ended up being exactly true. I mean, like this, like that was like a crazy accurate episode. Like just for it to just be a random thing that was come up with by a writer in the 90s, and nothing like this was going on in the 90s anywhere on the West Coast at that point. So for them to think up something like that, like either they were a visionary or they just got that by pure chance. But it's absolutely crazy. Anyways. Also, Cody Fritz said the Data episodes where he goes to San Francisco are pretty good. I really like the one where he ended up in the 1880s, I think it was, in San Francisco. Don't you remember that one, Matthew, where they had like Mark Twain and everything in that episode?
Oh yeah, I do remember that one. Yeah.
That one was a pretty cool one, man, where they like found Data's head in a mine shaft in like the 2400s or whatever. And it was that one was actually an interesting one. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. Still, I don't know how the hell I got. Oh, so somehow talking about the KERCH Bridge got us to San Francisco, talking about the Golden Gate Bridge and then Star Trek, and we got there. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to none other than Duncan VR, another channel legend. He's from Australia and puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that support. He said, Baba Moo, there are no birds, but oink. Get your hands off my ICBM, Moo oink. Oh man, I'm telling you. The fly's office chair got hit by a drone, oink quack. Enforcer, there was an elephant on that chair. What sound did it make? It's marmot time.
It's marmot time. Hey, it's marmot time. We gotta go get Alan, the marmot. Marmots are
Bring him
large.
out.
Marmots are large ground squirrels in the genus Marmota. And let's go take a gander at the one that's famous.
Squirrel.
Hey!
Oh, there he is. Oh, hello there, Governor. How you doing, Governor? Look at that. He's doing much better than ever. He's still got the bloody problem, but he's fine. He's fine. Look, he's just swell. He's just a little under the weather. He's just a little peakish. But anyway, how's the fly doing down there? How's he doing down there on the cold rock?
Aw, man, I'm still struggling. I'm on that struggle bus. Aw, man.
Oh dear, that sounds terrible. That sounds like a struggle bus, more like a struggle life. Terrible. Oh dear.
Aw, man, the manager of Shell gave me a job to market and distribute their gasoline. It was an offer I couldn't refuse. Aw,
Oh dear, big money
man.
moves. They can't reject the offer from the Shell. That's a big money move that only comes once in a lifetime. You know, cashier positions, they don't last long.
What can I say? I'm a real hustler. Aw, man, making the money
He's
moves.
hustling those Reese's snacks and Reese's cups. He's hustling those Pepsis faster across that scanner than you'll ever see in your life.
Aw, man, I said, they called me up and they said, we need you back, hot dog man. You're the best in the game. And I said, I'm retired. You might not be able to bring me back. And they said, we'll give you a free sick day. And I said, aw, man. And then they said, we'll give you free bud. And I went, aw, man, sign me up. I'm back in the business. Aw,
dear.
man.
He puts them hot dogs in them rollers and lets them ride. He's just the best hot dog man around. Some say that his gas station is so renowned for hot dogs that people come for gas there just to get a roller fresh off the grill. It's just a wonderful thing. He belongs at the gas station. It's truly his calling.
Aw, man, you know what they say out there on the streets? What does Hot Dog Man do with hot dogs that he does with something else? He lights them up. Aw, man, cooking up those glizzies. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well, Duncan VR. It was a great Marmot and Fly segment. We love the Marmot and Fly segment. And hey, we got to have more of it. But anyways, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that addressed that well. And we are on to the next one.
That guy that painted that marmot way back in the day had no idea that he would be the founder of such a great channel legend by drawing such a magnificent creature on canvas. What a fantastic guy. Remember him well. I can't remember his name right now, but he's a great painter. But anyways, jumping into our next super chat here, this one goes to save 15% or more. It puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Mr. Insurance Fellow, for that $20 support, and we do appreciate it very much. He said, KERCH Bridge on fire, your defense is terrified, with a music symbol behind it.
I think I remember something about that that whole little slogan and phrase. It was a really good one, I gotta say. Give them a wink and a nod, you know what I mean? Put a little smiley face in their cups, you know, while you blow up their bridge. You gotta get their value out of it, and we gotta benefit the shareholders. But beyond that, I gotta say thank you for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep running. I gotta say that is a great reference right there to an interesting chant. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I see a lot of people saying that the marmot is the official mascot of the Enforcer. It's actually a honey badger, technically. We never want to take away the honey badger, because the honey badger was the marmot before the marmot was cool, and we always want to make sure that that is reminded to be the official mascot of the Enforcer channel. The marmot is an unofficial mascot of the channel, but it's a really popular one because of the comedic value of the thing. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Nigel Caldwell, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Nigel, for that 20. And we do appreciate the support very much. And I'm pretty sure it's the first time you supported the channel. And of course, we do appreciate you helping to keep the channel running. And he said, I know y'all don't cover the markets much, but I'm a big investor in stocks and crypto. And my question is, with the current developments, how possible would it be for the U.S. to turn on the money printer to boost stocks and fund the war? Honestly, Nigel, I think turning on the money printer by increasing the currency flow in the country and also increasing the, I guess you could say, supply of currency, that really doesn't mess with the stocks that much, actually. Now, it messes with the interest rates and also messes with all kinds of other things like that, but it doesn't really mess with the stock prices necessarily. Earnings and sales is what messes with that, at least in my opinion. So I would say, generally speaking, if they turn on the money printer to boost stocks and fund the war, I would say we're already doing that because the U.S. stays in a constant state of readiness when it comes to war, and we have the biggest budget in defense of anywhere on the planet by a long shot because we believe in preparing for it instead of trying to ramp up for it when war finally hits. We're always war ready. So that's what I think. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree with Matthew on that one. And I'm not really a big person on the stocks and crypto, unfortunately, to really know a lot about them. And I know that always comes as a shock to many viewers. They're like, what? Why not? I don't know. I've just never really been into them, just a lot. So unfortunately, I don't really know a lot about them. But I do thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. But one thing that I do know about, is bonds. War bonds in particular, or any kind of government bonds, they're generally considered to be the safest kind of investment you can make because as long as you cash them back out in about 30 years' time, you're guaranteed to get the payout that you were told you were going to get. So, those are a pretty decent kind of a bet. But I think that if the government wanted to raise money, because one thing that is true about the money printer, just speaking on a basic economic level, is that when you turn the money printer on and the money printer go burr, it ends up causing inflation in the end because there's just more money going around, and there is still the same amount of economic productivity going on. So that means that money has lost less value because there are more dollars per the amount of productivity going on, making the dollar less valuable and once again causing more inflation. Bonds largely don't do that. Bonds are pretty much money that citizens give to the government right now in return for pretty much getting it back. But they're pretty much giving a loan to the government when they buy a bond, and they get that back eventually with interest in about 30 years' time. It's a pretty good way of doing things, at least in my opinion, economically, because it doesn't disturb the economic equilibrium that we currently have going on, but at the same time, it does give the government money as long as people are buying those bonds. So I would say that generally would be the best way that I would think it should be gone about, because that's the way to do it without causing the most economic disruption. Because currently the running trend has been, let's just print money. And printing money is fine. Like, I don't really see that much of a problem with it if it is done with due consideration. But a lot of people don't really do that anymore in the government with any kind of consideration whatsoever for the impact that it will be making even a couple of years down the line. Generally, a lot of people...
we're adding a trillion every 180 days to the deficit. That's the current rate of spending, is about $1 trillion every half year.
Yeah, so it's about $2 trillion annually at this point because of that. It's quite a large amount. And it's something that we need to start trying to get a little bit of a handle on, because generally letting the money printer go burr and just making the money and then increasing the amount of debt, it isn't something that's devastating. No one's ever going to come and collect on that debt, by the way, just to let you all know. And a lot of that's in intra-governmental debt, meaning that it's inside of our own government and we're owing different governmental departments specific amounts of money that they're never going to cash out on. So a lot of the debt is largely fictitious for the large part, and it's something a little bit ridiculous. Because let me go pull up the U.S. debt clock. This is something that a lot of people never really have their mind wrapped around a lot. Is that the U.S. debt currently held by foreign countries is $9.2 trillion. It is not the total $36 trillion that we are in debt in. So when you look at it, where in the world does a lot of the money go? You can see that there is... Let's see here. Let me see if I can get the actual... Let's see here. Dang, man. Well, they make this really hard to read. So it looks like they don't actually break down the intragovernmental debt here on this debt clock. Let's see. Is savings for adult. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see here. Damn. Let's see here. Border.
You need to go ahead and reset that Doge clock to 0.
Yeah, because it's that like the guy who was
That
once
sort of went away.
Yeah, he's kind of in fact the guy himself is actually shitting on the new spending bill coming around because he's saying it's doing the exact opposite of what he wanted to do. But
Porkfield.
Also, man, it's like for Doge to have been... hold up, wait a minute. I'm looking at this, dude. It's saying that so far they've cut $505 billion from the government's budget, or, saved $505 billion. I actually don't think it's gotten anywhere close to that, at least from what we've heard, right?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure how they're coming up with these figures. Like, it just seems to be arbitrarily going up at some like predefined rate. I'm like, how are they defining? Honestly, this seems like it's for like entertainment value instead of like real, like it says real time running total. It seems like it's more entertainment.
Yeah, it's a rough estimate though, but still, $9.2 trillion is held by foreign countries. So a lot of the debt isn't even real. Like out of the $36 trillion, only $9.2 trillion is actually owed to someone outside of the country, not inside of America. So the debt is largely fictitious. You can run the money printer, you could do it, but still, at the same time, though, I generally say that might not be the best idea in the long term, and I think bonds would be the better way to go about it, raising money for a war. But beyond that, I also think, Matthew, that this clock thing might be a little bit inaccurate, because if we find, let's see here, I don't even know what the hell that is. I'm trying to find the other thing where you find all of their other clocks. Because there's one, man, that's just absolutely hilarious. It's like some sort of conspiracy theory clock thing. What about the energy output? What do they have here? Man, they're hitting us with the ads.
They're making their money's worth off of this.
Bro, they are making bank on this page right here. They got an ad for Israel, an ad for a video game, and an ad for Fiverr. Man, crazy. Also, is that a freaking Apollo capsule on like a Skylab or something right there? Like, what the hell is that?
It says powered by super intelligence. You see that little logo at the bottom over there? Look at that. Look.
What the hell?
Bottom left. Powered by super intelligence.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, man. It's kind of busted looking for real. I'm not gonna lie, dude. Let's see. State debt clocks. How about the state of Alabama? How much debt are we in? Wow, actually, Alabama's actually in debt.
It's a wait a minute, sorry. I thought states had to have a balanced budget.
Apparently not, because the debt to GDP ratio in Alabama is about 16.21%.
Can states go into debt?
The answer must be yes.
Let's see. States are legally required to balance their budgets annually. They often borrow to fund capital projects like infrastructure. The debts are managed through issuance of bonds and are generally not used for operating expenses. It says state and local governments do not have the economic ability to run fiscal deficits. Okay, like there's conflicting answers to that question. Like there's people saying that are economists that they don't have the ability to run a deficit, and then there's some people saying they can technically go into debt. So I've been under the impression for a long time from my economy classes that they were not able to go into debt. So I'm not sure what's up with that.
Also, man, I like how you can tell the economic prosperity of our state with a population of 5.1 million people. 756,000 of them are on food stamps.
Oh, wow.
That's like...
Is that high or something?
I'd say that's about, I think, like 17% of the state. So I think that's a pretty decent amount. Let's go check a state like California, and let's go compare. Oh my God, 5.4 million people. Well, you know what? Let me go get a percentage ratio on that, though, because I feel like we will need a percentage ratio to really know. So keep this down, Matthew. I'm going to divide the amount of food stamp recipients by the population, and that'll give us a percentage. So 756,808 divided by 5,131,988. So Alabama, 14.7% of the population is on food stamps. In California, so put that number down somewhere, Matthew.
I got it.
14.7%. So in California, let's go 5,410,102 divided by 38,805. 072. So 13.9% of the population of California is on food stamps. Now, let's pick another state, just an oddball so that we can have a bit of a population pool here. Let's go with the state of North Carolina. Okay, so this one's actually a little bit easier. So it looks like about 10% or so of the population of North Carolina is on food stamps. So
Alabama is a bit high.
Alabama is a bit high. Once again, showing the economic prosperity of our Oh, dude, we don't even want to look at Mississippi.
I gotta know that one real quick.
Bro, we got to know that one, bro. It's gonna be like the whole state. Let's see. MS. Here we go. Mississippi. They haven't changed the state flag. Actually, that's not that many. Let me do the ratio on that. Bro, Mississippi is like so unpopulated. It's like like there's no one living there. Let's see. 378,248 people on food stamps divided by 2,933,657. So, actually, funnily enough, there's more people in Alabama on food stamps than there is in Mississippi by percentage. Only 12.9% of the state of Mississippi is on food stamps.
That's crazy, honestly. Honestly, I just can't believe that few people live in Mississippi. Like, nobody even wants to live there. Honestly, I'm not dissing anybody from Mississippi. I have family members from Mississippi. I can't stand it. Like, Mississippi absolutely sucks. Like, the whole state's bad. Alabama's better than Mississippi, and that's saying something.
Oh my god, yeah, it's true. It really is. What's crazy, man, is that the Birmingham metropolitan area has the population of about, I think, 60-something% of the whole of Mississippi. That's how unpopulated Mississippi is. But you can really see it when you go through there. Mississippi. If I had to describe a state, if I had to describe an area that was close to being in hell in real life, in my opinion, it would be pretty much all of Mississippi and like North Louisiana. Not to say that they're like the people there are bad, but the place itself is just, it's like forgotten by everyone. Like there's no economic activity there. It's pretty much dead. Like every single city there does not have an economy. It's collapsing inwards. Most people seem to be in poverty or unemployed. It's an absolutely terrible place for anyone who wants to have a future. And that's why I think it's just close to like hell if there was a place like that in America, is because of just the lack of any kind of opportunity for anyone to get a good paying job there at all. It's just really crazy. And the whole Mississippi's like that. Anywhere you drive through there, like the only businesses I ever see that are doing well are hotels that people are stopping in to sleep the night and then keep driving on out of the state the next day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of Mississippi's GDP is made up mainly on the coast near Biloxi and things like that, where they have shipbuilding and a lot of those industries. That's mainly where most of their income comes from for the state, is around this point.
Yeah, I would agree. It probably has to be. Because Pascagoula is still a pretty big shipyard to this day, at least for the military. That's for sure. Because we can come over here and, I mean, just look at the amount of ships that they're building down here at the English shipyard in Pascagoula. It's like Mobile was back in the day. It's pretty busy. By the way, folks, Mobile used to be a major shipyard or a shipbuilding yard. Nowadays, it isn't. And really, the only people who build ships here was Alstom. And I think they've gone out of business, technically. At least around here, and they produced their last ship and they shut down their production. Actually, no, they're still here. But they build Littoral-class ships in here, and those were an absolute failure. So, yeah, that's pretty much all.
And then they have to make sure that they're shipworthy enough to launch them into the Chocolate River to send them out to sea.
Bro, they launched them into the Wonka River. Bro, the Oompa Loompas are the one running the spillway out here, man. Like, they said they're Oompa Loompa Doompity Doo. I've got another story for you. And then they sit there, what do you get when you build a catamaran? It breaks in the middle of the freaking hull. Like, it's like, bro, and they're honestly right, man, because, like, the Littoral class ships, like the Independence and Freedom classes, are already, did you know, they're already being retired. Some of them are.
Yeah, it was their junk.
Yeah, they were just terrible. It was like it was too experimental, and it was a terrible concept in reality. Also, it's really stupid in the modern age to go, "Hey, folks, what if we got ships up close on each other to fight it out?" It's like that won't happen. It's like that's not going to happen. It's like, why would we build that many ships to do something like that when that really isn't going to be a thing anymore in most naval engagements? It's like that's just ridiculous. It's like it would have been better just to build more Arleigh Burkes. That would have made a lot more sense, and just make them. I think it's like the Block 51 variants or the Block 60s. That would have made a load more sense than building those. But it gave the Chocolate River some business, so I guess we really can't complain too much. Also,
you remember that child that drowned in the Chocolate River that they had on that Willy Wonka thing? That kid
Augusta, sweetheart, no!
They literally had a kid drowning, like at least mimicking drowning in that movie. It's like, that's interesting, a choice for a kid's movie to have like a child drowning in chocolate in the river.
Bro, and then Willy Wonka's response is, The weak shall devour the strong. You know, that's his response as he gets sucked up a chocolate tube. But also, someone said, "What is the Battle House?" It's probably one of the cool things in Mobile. It's this hotel. They have this really interesting lobby that's made up of arches. I'm trying to see if I can get a better picture of the lobby for all y'all. Damn, they don't have like any. Here we go. So that's what the lobby looks like in this tiny little picture right here. These arches upstairs are kind of neat because you can whisper into the corner of one, and the sound will travel all the way over the arch to the other side. So if you're on the different sides, you can listen in on each other. Problem is that they don't explain this when you're at the hotel. Literally every arch does that in the world because they just reverberate sound the same way. There's nothing special about their arches. But if you go there and you know nothing about arches, they will make you think that their arches are like special or something. A really cool building though, I will admit. I really like the look of it. And it's been around for quite some time, at least the main building part, and then it was expanded on and built on later. But yeah, it's an interesting place, the city of Mobile. It actually had a lot of history. It's just sadly most of that's been wiped off the face of the planet within the past 50 years. And also one other thing is that the USNS Mercy, which you can see right here, actually gets moored down here from time to time. And currently, the SS United States is down here in Mobile right now while people are trying to battle to save the ship, which is kind of neat. Let me see if I can pull that up. United States in Mobile. Let me go see if we can get some pictures of that. So that's the ship that's currently in Mobile right now.
Oh, wow. The SS.
Man, dude, it is the SS. But you know what's crazy about the ship is that even right now in that kind of state, that thing still holds the blue ribbon for the fastest transatlantic crossing ever conducted in history.
Well, that thing was a chuffer.
Man, that thing was a chuffer. It would go so fast, it literally stripped the paint off the hull. That's how quick it could move through the water.
That sounds like a wives' tale right there.
No, it's true. I can actually pull it up. Let's see. Paint. Paint. You know what? I want to pull this up all screen because I'm going to put stripping in there, and I don't know what results are going to pop up for that. So let's see here. Oh man, I got to be able to find
the cans throwing it down.
So, dang man, I'm going to have to see if I can find a picture here of this, but to give you an idea of how fast this thing really could go, that was the bow spray from the thing at speed.
Oh wow, they better be glad this one didn't run into the iceberg because it would have been really finished.
Dude, this thing would have rammed into the iceberg and split it in two going that fast. This thing could go
right
quick.
here. It would have sunk in 30 seconds if it hit an iceberg at that speed.
Dude, for ocean liners, this thing literally was the equivalent of like a piss missile. This thing was like lightning quick for an ocean liner. But I'm trying to see if I can find maiden voyage pictures. I think it would have been its maiden voyage pictures that would have showed it, if anywhere, because it was true. Like I saw a picture of it before, and I was like, no way. I was like, that's unbelievable that it could get up to that kind of speed. And I'd be dipped, dude. It's really hard to find any of these pictures. I gotta find it, dude, though, because now you've challenged me. I gotta find the proof of it, man, because it is out there somewhere. But it would pretty much sandblast the front of the ship every single time it made a crossing because it would go so fast. The thing would strip the paint off of the lower part of the bow. It was like a little area. It wasn't huge, but it would just be raw aluminum that would be shining through.
I just have to take your word for it.
Man, I can't do that. Well, actually, you can kind of see that right there. I mean, like, it's still, like, the area that was repainted over, the paint rotted away quicker than the rest. So you can kind of see where it would happen, but I can't really find the picture, like, a picture of it in service doing that to really prove it. It's a damn shame, too, because it was really cool to look at, and it was unbelievable to think a ship could go that fast that it could literally strip the paint off of itself. But this thing's in Mobile right now. I wish that they would save the ship. It is a really cool one, and it actually was the last, like, flagship ocean liner of the United States as a nation before the airliners took all of their business. It would be cool to see it preserved and brought back up to some sort of historical condition as, like, a floating museum and hotel like the Queen Mary. But the reality is that it's a very expensive thing to do that. It would be a novelty for people to go to from time to time, but it wouldn't have like a huge amount of occupancy to make it a viable sort of a business venture. So it'd probably be pretty tough to see that they actually end up saving the ship from being sunk near Destin as an artificial reef. It's probably going to end up being an artificial reef. That's the truth of it. But anyways, with that, I hope we went through a fun little rabbit hole there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Gopnik Buddha, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Gopnik, for that $10 support. They said damage to Russia seems irreparable, and what are the odds that Russia breaks down and becomes a failed state with a rogue government armed with nukes, and is NATO prepared for such a threat?
I don't think it'll ever become a rogue government, because they kind of are already doing that now, but it's not really rogue per se, where they're like a pirate of the high seas just lobbing nukes at people. I don't think that'll ever happen. There will be some sort of an organized government that came out of a collapse, but I would say that the Russian government itself is on such an unsteady footing with how their military is faring and their economy is faring that it could be easy to see a government collapse in the future within years or so. I would say that definitely be the case, but a rogue government roaming around with nukes, highly unlikely. And as far as NATO having to be concerned about that, we also have nuclear deterrence that would pretty much stop them from just lobbing nukes at us for fun weekly and then seeing what our response would be. We would just obliterate them if they tried that. So I thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Friend Wilkins, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Friend Wilkins, for that $10 support, and we also appreciate that. And also on Reddit, big shout out to Shaky Jake 117, who also threw in a 10, and we also appreciate you as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you for all of y'all's support. Yeah, y'all didn't throw in comments, but the support is greatly appreciative. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we would have never been able to make the show a reality, and we wouldn't be able to make it a show tonight. So a big thanks for you once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And before we move on to the next one, I saw someone ask a really good question. JMP Traveler said, was that the German one we got after the war? Speaking about the SS United States. The SS United States was designed in America by Francis, I think it was Francis Scott Gibbs, if I remember correctly. Francis Gibbs. William Francis Gibbs. He was the guy who actually designed the vessel. And you could look at him, and you could tell he was a ship designer, like, by trade. You can just look at that guy and be like, he builds ships, or really designs them. He was the one who originally gave the Leviathan, which is actually the one we did get from the Germans after World War I, into its original SS-US lines, kind of a livery. But he also was the one to design the SS America and the SS United States, along with the SS Malolo, which... He was a great ship designer, by the way. I would say he's probably one of the best out there, not because he's an American, but he truly was one of the best. He designed ships with multiple safety redundancies. His ships were usually the fastest and safest ships at sea, and generally were also fireproofed throughout. He was a very great ship designer, but he did design the SS United States, which was very impressive for the time, and also... This is the actual ship that we got from the Germans at the end of World War I, the Vaterland. We got it, and we renamed it from the Vaterland to the Leviathan, and it became, I think, the flagship for a while of the the United States lines for some time, until they got the SS America, and then I think that became the flagship, and then later, when the SS United States got rolled out from the slipway or the spillway, that's when it became the flagship of the US lines for the little remainder of time that they had left before the airliner pretty much took all their business and killed off the United States lines. But a little bit of interesting history with that. Anyways, with that, I hope that has addressed it well. And y'all thought for a while there, folks, I was just into trains really big, didn't you? And then I just sat there and went through a whole rabbit hole of the the United States lines alone. And I could do that for every liner, because I find transportation very interesting just around the board. So I get rabbit hole a lot. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. That's actually the ship that we got from the Germans, not the SS United States. And also, the Vaterland had a whole bunch of issues in its own right, and no one really liked it too much. A lot of people complained about riding on it. They said it was uncomfortable. It had an issue with listing. Like, in the waves, it would list a lot, so people got a decent amount sick on the thing. But that also was something that happened on the Queen Mary a great deal, because a lot of people always talk about, oh, the Queen Mary, opulence. It's in Long Beach now. It's stuck there forever. But everyone talks about, oh, the Queen Mary, oh, the opulence. Honestly, I'd say the Queen Mary was like one of the worst to probably ride on at the time, because they said this thing could roll 20 degrees port and starboard at any given moment. And sometimes they would just do that at random, like the seas would be still, and they would just roll like that. And it's I'm not really someone to handle seasickness well. I would actually be throwing up the whole trip on a ship like that. So when I look at this thing, some people are like, "Oh, it's beautiful," and I'll agree, it is beautiful. but I would be throwing up all over the place riding on that thing if it actually was a still operational ocean liner. Also, by the way, JMP Traveler, I do watch Ocean Liner Designs. I think his channel is absolutely mint. Great channel. He's very well researched and informed on what he does, and also his presentations are incredible. He does a great job at it. I would say that him and Brick and Mortar and also Drachnefel are usually my go-to channels for naval stuff. And they also do great projects with Titanic Honor and Glory, Project 401, all those great things. Honestly, incredible public works. Really, really good channels throughout in that kind of category. Could not recommend them enough. They know what they're talking about, and they do it incredibly well. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right. So our next one here goes to Gary Bott, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Gary Bott, for that 10. And he says, I also heard that Moscow apparently formally declared war on Ukraine.
They did that a while ago. I think it was like a year and a half ago or so that they did that. But they kind of do that like ritualistically at this point every couple of months. Although they officially did it a year and a half ago. So they may have done it again recently. It's just that we didn't even have it cross our radar because technically it's been a actual declared war for I think about a year and a half at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I just had someone ask me, are you autistic, Enforcer? I don't know. Like, maybe, maybe not. I have no clue. It's never been officially diagnosed if it is. I'm just someone who's very particular with my interests. But I can rabbit hole like that on everything. Like, if you told me, rabbit hole about guns, I could tell you about all kinds of stuff on firearms, the innovations, technological revolutions that were had. I could do that as well on that. I don't really think I'm, like... I don't like it's very easy for people to say, oh, you're autistic. I don't really think I'm autistic. I just think I've like I don't know, maybe it's Asperger's or something. I have no clue. I've never been officially diagnosed. But whenever I get interested in something, I will be interested in it for a couple of years, and I will absolutely rip that thing apart and try and learn every single little detail about it. And once I feel like I know a good amount, or I've kind of gotten to knowing a good amount enough that it's pretty much run its course, then I'll move on to the next thing and just start researching that a whole load as well. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Looks like that person just got banned there for being a little crazy. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Darth Egregious, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Darth Egregious, for that support. He said, my understanding is that the underwater drone was there for a while, and is that true?
I don't think so. It couldn't have been there for an incredibly long period of time because it would have been sitting around in an active shipping channel if that was the case, and it could have been bumped into by something destroying the submersible drone or puncturing its watertight hull, or it could have possibly been spotted. So I would highly doubt that it had been there for a while. It may have remotely planted explosives under the bridge, and the explosives could have been there for a while because they did say that the bombs had been there for months, but I would highly doubt that they really had been there, well, the submersible drone had been there for months on end, because also how would it maintain battery power, and how would it be operated or remotely connected? At least for Ukrainian technology. I know that's a thing that's possible for the U.S. Navy and also other navies around the world to just have a drone sit dormant for a while, but I don't really think the Ukrainians would be able to possess that kind of a technology. Theirs is usually more crude but ingeniously used, so I would largely say that they probably planted the bomb there. The bomb was there for months, but the drone was long gone since then, at least from what I would know. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Old Texas Red, and Old Texas Red puts in a 10, and thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that support. He said, didn't the Russians tell the Chinese that if the Chinese invaded Siberia, they would just nuke them? And what happens if the Chinese think the Russians can no longer respond with nukes?
I don't think they'll ever invade Siberia. Well, they could invade Siberia at that point if the Russians don't really have enough operational nuclear weapons to pose a threat. But the People's Republic of China will most likely not do that because the People's Republic of China does not recognize the area of Siberia to be a part of China. They actually don't even recognize the parts that used to be a Republic of China here around the Vladivostok or Port Arthur area, as it used to be called, as a part of China. Now, the Republic of China on Taiwan actually recognizes that area to be theirs, but the Communist Chinese don't. So I would generally say that even if they knew the Russians didn't have nuclear weapons, they wouldn't invade them. And not only that, that would start to show a dangerous message to a lot of China's possible friends or economic slaves of the future, that the Chinese are aggressive and dangerous, and they wouldn't really want to join forces with them in the future. So the Chinese would probably leave it alone and not really do much. Now, on the other hand, they would take the contested islands in the Amur River, but beyond that, they really wouldn't do too much. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I think it wants to give her support and help with this channel to keep running. And also, I just saw Quantum Cell say, what's your current interest? It's trains. That's why trains come up pretty often on streams. It used to be guns. And then in the background, ocean liners were a huge interest of mine for like a year or so, way back in the day. But every once in a while, I'll go watch like a good ocean liner designs video or something like that, just to like scratch that itch. It's not really a big one, but guns were the big fascination of mine for years, because I found them mechanically interesting, and also it was incredibly fun to try and get proficient with firearms. So I was very interested in that. And then lately, because it's been more difficult to shoot guns, and considering that I really didn't get to get hands on with them a lot because of where we moved, and I don't want folks, seeing me walk out of the house every day, with like a different kind of a rifle and being like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because I want to be considerate of the folks around us and not have them worried about what the hell that is. I'm just going to the range, but I don't want people to be concerned thinking that it could be something else. So because of that, I was like, I need to pick up a new interest, and I've always been interested in trains. So then I just went full in on trains. So that's the current interest at the moment, if you're wondering, if you're concerned about that. And so with that, hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So our next one here goes to Wan108888, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. And he also put in a second one as well, another $10 donation. And he said, adding so the soft hands joke, I've driven more miles in reverse. Then you
got soft hands, boy. You got soft hands. And I got to thank you for the support one time. And I got to give a huge amount of respect to the truckers out there in this country. They live in practical isolation outside of the CB radio. And that's if they even have a CB radio anymore. They live in practical isolation, driving the interstates and highways of the U.S. for about 10 hours sometimes a day, or even longer than that, sometimes 12 and 14 hours a day, to move the cargo of America from place to place. It's a very tough job. Really, all transportation jobs are tough. Their job is fairly tough, and I would have to say I got a lot of respect for the truckers out there. And usually, whenever you run into truckers, they're not fairly nice people. They're very nice people. So I'd have to say a big shout out to you, Wonton, for being one of the truckers here in this great country, because you are as important as the railroads in making sure that our goods in this country get from one place to the next as seamlessly and flawlessly as they can. Although there is massive problems in the railroad and trucking industry at the moment that are not being fixed or addressed by the government at this point due to a lack of regulation. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And also, a lot of people are probably thinking, wait a minute, that sounded kind of political to talk about regulation of the railroads and trucking industries. It really isn't. It really isn't. Regulation in the trucking and railroad industry was a thing throughout the whole history of this country when both industries existed. Up until the 80s. Up until the 80s, everything was regulated. Quite heavily, actually, to make sure that everyone got a fair shot at things and to make sure that people weren't living in absolute hell doing those jobs. And now that regulation is gone, generally because of the Staggers Act in 1980 for the railroads, and I forgot what the act was for the trucking industry to be deregulated, but the airlines were also deregulated as well in the 80s. It was just kind of like a running theme of that era to deregulate everything, and because of that, pretty much everything has ended up becoming a living hell for both the consumer and the workers that are involved in those industries because of the lack of regulation that used to be there, that used to make it something that was enjoyable, both for the consumers and the workers. So I would say that it is, I would say at this point, it would be very important to push forward regulation again, to see that the ICC actually starts to manage and handle all of these different railroads, trucking organizations, and airlines, because I would have to say that nowadays, it's those industries, the transportation industries as a whole, are going absolutely out of control. They treat their workers like garbage, mostly across the board, unless you're working for a smaller in trucking industry or a short line railroad or a smaller airline company, which generally will treat their employees fairly and also their customers well. The larger companies out there are treating employees and customers alike absolutely terribly these days, and it generally is because they have no regulatory body out there that's going to beat them down back to size if they continue to act like that. It's just a crazy thing. Like whenever you listen to stories of workers in any of these industries, every trucker, every railroader, and every airline pilot always says it was better back in the 80s. It was better back in the 70s. It was better back in the 80s. And that the reality is because it was regulated back then, and companies couldn't pursue the profits of the shareholders to the ends of the earth because there was a limit to when you had to stop. And nowadays there's been no limit to that, and it's just run rampant over the past few decades. So a little bit interesting with that. But still, that would be my statement on it. I was thinking Matthew might chip in at some point there, because I was thinking, man, this is a topic he'd love to chip in on. You want to chip in something, Matthew, before we move on, or do we want to just move on to the next one?
Oh, no, I think you covered it pretty good.
Oh, okay. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here goes to Uncovered Cube 7, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Uncovered Cube, for that $5 support. And they said, do you think the drone attack was a type of bat bomb, but with drones? And imagine what we could do.
It kind of was a bat bomb for the large part. It was drones, kind of like the bats, that were seeking out a specialized location and then pretty much hiding in the weak spots. So yeah, it pretty much was a AI-controlled bat bomb for the large part that was going off at each of these air bases, and it was wildly effective. I think as long as we use some sort of an AI system like that, the bat bomb concept is wildly effective, at least in my opinion. And I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Snappy452, and Snappy puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Snappy, for that support. They said the Russian bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. The Russian bridge is falling down, and so is the chief of the Air Force.
Yeah, he was falling about 9 stories today. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. I like the little nursery rhyme right there. I appreciate it. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kachulian343, who puts in a 5. And big shout to Kachulian for that support as well. They said, if this is political, it's okay. But do you think Zelensky is trying to make Putin look like an idiot to sour the U.S. president's opinion and friendship with him?
Maybe, possibly. I'm not really sure. I can't really say on that one because, as far as my analysis is concerned, the president of the United States is fairly unpredictable. That's not to make a political statement. That's just truly how it's gone in analytics. Well, not really analytics, but analyzing so far, he's largely unpredictable. We don't even know what he's going to be doing the next day. So maybe he is, but I feel like that would kind of be a shot in the dark because we don't even know how he'd interpret it. He might interpret it well or bad. We just don't really know. But I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And I think it wants to give us support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to KW New York Upstate, who puts in a 5. And they said, if anyone can video the area, why does it conveniently cut off before you can see the damage to the bridge?
I don't really know. That's a good question. It generally is because probably the pillar was still standing, which we already know. We already know the pillar was still standing. That's probably why I didn't show it, because it wouldn't have showed the kind of devastating damage that may have been hoped for. That's at least what I would believe. But with that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jeffrey Walker, who puts in a 5. And Jeffrey said, thorough and well thought out as always, gentlemen. And for fun time, tell us your favorite joke. And much love to all the LSA.
And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And as far as a favorite joke, I actually don't have one. I actually can't think of a joke on the spot. You put me on the spot here. I can't think of a joke on the spot, sadly. So, unfortunately, I think I'll have to declare ignorance on that one, and that's a bit of a shame because it seems like an easy question to answer. But Matthew, do you have a favorite joke, perchance?
A favorite joke, eh? I'll be honest with you. I'm like drawing a blank when you ask that for some reason. I usually have some jokes in the back of my mind, but I just can't think of them off the bat for some reason. Honestly, I can't be put on the spot on the joke either, to be straight up honest.
Man, whenever anyone's like, be funny, it's like you just can't. You like it's never possible then. I don't know why. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I make my life a whole joke, and then someone tells me, oh man, tell me a joke. Oh man, I can't because I am the joke. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I get no respect around here. Maybe that's a good joke. Maybe. I don't know. But with that, I thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. I hope that it's addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Uncovered Cube 7, who puts in a $5 donation, and thank you very much, Uncovered Cube, for that support as well. They said, do you think India and Pakistan conflict shows that nuclear war is probably a less likely outcome than Russia wants the world to think?
It generally is. That's kind of the truth of it. Nuclear annihilation is an incredibly scary thing, and the fear of that is what stopped people from going to war. But the truth is that getting to that nuclear response, you have to push the envelope very much farther than a lot of people would believe. A lot of people believe that as soon as a war starts, the nukes start flying. The truth is that the nukes start flying once one side's about to be completely defeated in a conventional war. That's really the reality of it. So still, it's quite true that war is showing, or that attempted war was showing, that nuclear conflict is a lot farther away than people really realize. And that's actually a little bit scary because we may see the return of major conventional wars as a result of that throughout the rest of this century. But still, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 5. And Andrew says, in my opinion, the recent strikes and the obvious OPSEC failures are meant to demonstrate how weak Putin's regime is, and Ukraine will benefit from it.
I would agree. It's starting to show how weak their security is, as well as really, honestly, it's just an embarrassment to the Russian FSB because they're supposed to be on top of all of this and stopping this before it happens due to their competent intelligence system. But what it's really showing is that they're entirely incompetent because any attack that Ukraine wants to pull off, they're able to pull it off with ease. And the FSB is nowhere to be found stopping them. So I would have to agree. I think that largely is the case, that they're just trying to embarrass the Russian government at this point. And largely the FSB, because Putin is pretty much the leader of the FSB in a sense. But still, I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to the Dane Company, who puts in a 5. And it said, will there be any repercussions to Ukraine for the violation of the SALT Treaty if that applies?
And if what applies?
The SALT Treaty.
Yes, but they're saying if that applies in regards to something that would have to do with the SALT Treaty, and I don't know what that thing is.
What is a SALT Treaty?
I believe the SALT Treaty was some sort of a limiting of nuclear weapons. Let me make sure to check that. Yeah, an agreement between the U.S. and the Soviet Union aimed at limiting the number of types of nuclear weapons in their respective arsenals. And there were two SALT treaties, the SALT I and the SALT II. And so I do remember the SALT 1 and the SALT 2, but unfortunately I have to declare ignorance on that because I'm not really sure how the question is structured and how that pertains to anything, because that's just kind of like a standalone question about that, and I don't know what that is, if that's making sense. So unfortunately I'd have to declare ignorance on that one because I don't really know what that's even pertaining to and how it would even relate to the SALT treaties. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Neighborhood Bully Exploration, who puts in a 5. And they said, not much, but you could buy a hot dog with it at least. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, we're harassed by a man called the Hot Dog Man for years. Oh, man. And then someone offers us a hot dog. Oh, man, get out of here. I get no respect around here. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, and he gets no respect around here. Oh, man. You want to tell you about the Hot Dog Man? Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, he's back to selling hot dogs. Oh, man, Cole McCartney. Oh, man, the way he's a joke. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, they don't even put him at the hot dog stand when he goes to the carnival. Oh, man, they put him in the freak show. They go, hey, look at a man that looks like a dog. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, he looks like one of those little ugly dogs, too. Oh, man, like a pug or something. Oh, man, he's got the same breathing problem, too. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And he tries to fix it with Bud. Oh, man, I'm telling you. He calls it that loud. Oh, man, the only thing that's loud about him is that damn face. Oh, man, I'm telling you. People can see that and hear it from about a mile away. Oh, man. Oh, man. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Kurt Feldman puts in a $5 donation and says, no, I appreciate the shout out to the viewers and thank you, enforcers.
Hey, and thank you so much for supporting it. Every once in a while, we always get someone who complains about it, and it's like, hey, we make a living off of it. So we gotta make sure to thank these folks because one, we actually are appreciative of their support, and two, they are making it possible for us to be here. I mean, that's not a joke. Like that's the reality of it. We're not just saying that like a corporation to go, we thank you for your business. Like no, like we live and die by the super chats for the large part. So if those people are not supporting, you don't get to even complain about hearing us say like thanks to the super chatters because we wouldn't even be running a show at all. And like I don't think a lot of people get that with that whole side of things. If I shit on super chatters, which I don't know why I would in the first place, but if I just shit on them and act like their super chats don't count for nothing and people don't support this channel, we don't have a business anymore. We don't have like you don't have a show to come to anymore. That's why I think that everyone ought to be really like thanking the super chatters because they are the reason why the whole thing's possible. Nobody has to support the channel, but the ones that are supporting it and going out of their way to do that, they are actually making the show a reality for you to watch for free, which is totally fine by us. But I still feel like people ought to really appreciate that fact because that's the truth. That's the real lay of the land on that kind of a situation. If we didn't have super chats, we wouldn't have a show to run. And so a big thanks to you once again for understanding that and finding it to be totally acceptable because that is the real reality of the whole thing. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got excuse me, goodness, getting choked there. But we got one from Dante Amin, who puts in a $5 donation. And Dante says, what do you think the odds are if Russia is going to use tactical nukes in Ukraine to hit military targets?
Oh, let's see here. Can you ask that question again?
Dante said in the question, what do you think are the odds of Russia using tactical nukes in Ukraine to hit military targets?
I would say highly unlikely at this point. I don't really think they're going to be using any kind of tactical nuclear weapons or nuclear weapons for the foreseeable future, in my opinion, although I could be wrong. But I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Kyle Padell, who puts in a 5. And Kyle said, what is wrong with the mower? Ain't got no gas. Enforcers Pizza and Coffee Fund.
Hey, thank you for supporting the pizza and coffee fund. It ain't got no gas in it. And I got to thank you for the support and making this thing a reality. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Herb Derp NV, who puts in a 5. And they said, I wish Hot Dog Man only the most bubble gut Taco Bell loving drivers to visit the gas station bathroom. Oh my. And he's now responsible to keep clean.
Aw, man, that's absolutely terrible. Aw, man. And I'd have to say, I thank you for the support. And that is a very bad thing to wish on someone. But I can't disagree, but I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, let's see, the same guy would be saying here, yeah, the real Hot Dog Man, you are correct about that, because if we didn't thank each super chatter, then the complaint would be is that we're ignoring the super chatters. And then people who don't like, and what's always funny to me is that it's always the people who never super chat who are the most critical about how we handle the super chats. Like the people who super chat, they're perfectly fine with it. They like it, they enjoy it, and they like to know that we actually thank them for their support quite sincerely. It's always the people who never super chat who always want to make it their business how we respond to the folks who actually are making it possible for them to be here to even hear us speaking about a super chat. That's always interesting to me. And it's not a lot of people. It's always just a small group of people. But that's true, and that's something. It's just really weird how that works. And also, Buddy P. Moon said, hypothetically, you guys did not have this channel. What sort of profession would you be working in? Probably something close to this at this point, because we've gotten pretty good at it, and I feel like we would be probably easily hired on to some sort of another news organization. Yeah, at some level to cover the news, because we do it fairly well and we're fairly personable. I would feel, I think, and so that's what I.
Man, they're trying to put me on. They need to put me on Vice or something like that.
Oh,
like,
hell no.
They need to have me running around with a mic and stuff like that, running to people's face. Like, oh yeah, that's what we need.
Oh hell no! but I would certainly not be a lawyer. I would agree with Matthew on that one. Certainly would never be an attorney. But with that. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Russ Rizzo, who puts in a 5. And Russ said, last week I saw my psychiatrist. I told him, Doc, I keep thinking I'm a dog. He told me to get off his couch, Rodney.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, I get no respect around here. Oh, man, you know what I was told by my psychiatrist? My psychiatrist, Dr. Vinny Von Botch. Oh, man, last week I saw my psychiatrist. I told him, Doc, I keep thinking I'm a dog. He told me to get off his couch. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, and I don't get any respect around here. Oh, man, and my wife treats me like a dog, too. Oh, man, every time a guy comes into our house, she throws a bone out the window and tells me to go fetch. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And then they close the windows afterwards. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I don't even know what the hell they're doing in there. Oh, man. That's actually like a very Rodney-esque joke right there. That sounds really messed up, but that actually is something that he'd say. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. Russ Rizzler. And with that, we are on... By the way, I said Russ Rizzler intentionally. It is Russ Rizzler. But still, thank you for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And oh my, our next one here goes to Butchie777, who puts in a 10-pound donation. And thank you very much, Butchie, for that 10-pound donation. Very heavy, very good support, and we appreciate that. And they put in the Doge saying, thank you, like that. Look at it, just going back and forth like that. Thanks for losing it. Look at it.
Man.
Crazy thing. So thank you, though. Well, I appreciate that. And
Man.
Enforcer, what say you?
That thing going crazy. That thing going crazy right now. I gotta thank you for the support, Butchie777, and helping this channel to keep running and throwing in that little Doge, sticking out its tongue and squishing its cheeks. It's very cute indeed, and I gotta say thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running, Butchie777, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to run our fabulous news show here. And so with that, big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Sarge, for that $2 support, and we appreciate that very much. He said, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
Alright, hit that like button. That is an order from LSA Sergeant Figment. And crazily enough, holy smokes, we actually got a lot of likes tonight, 3,300. That is a load of likes right there. And I got to thank you all for hitting the like button so far. And if you haven't hit it yet, hit it now. Hit it now. Hit that thing. Slam it. Beat it. Get the thing, hit it. I'm just playing around here, man. I'm just yanking the chain. I'm just busting balls here. But beyond that, I do thank you once again for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Plazant, who put in a 2, and also Drew, who put in a 2 as well. And we also had a 2 from Wavan Dumoulin. And we appreciate all three of you very much, Plazant, Drew, and Wavan. And we appreciate that, of course, to help keep the channel running. And we also have a $2 donation from Drew, who I think, unfortunately, has had to leave us tonight. He said, please play Reagan's peace speech. And we sadly can't do that either because that would be copyrighted. But unfortunately, what say you?
And that also probably pretty political because Reagan's a bit of a divisive guy. But I do thank you for the support. And I also thank you for asking me if I'm autistic earlier. And also then going off after that for some reason. I don't even know why. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on to a real legend here. A real legend. What do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this one goes to the Danny B. Chef Danny B, by the way. He puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Danny, for that support once again. He said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here. I'm used to Colorado time. In Colorado, the stream would be over, but I have to go back and listen to everything since I've been in Texas. But I'm in Colorado bound tomorrow.
Hey, good to hear Danny B. Going back to Colorado, which is on Mountain Time. I think Texas is on Central Time, like we are. So you're actually in our time zone right now that we're running this thing from. And you know what's funny? You know what's funny, folks, is that this stream runs at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So when we're talking about moving Enforcer HQ 3.0, wherever we move, it's generally going to be out of the Central Time Zone. That I can tell y'all. So either we're having to go to work because right now every night when we go live at 10, we're going live at 9 our time, and we've been doing that for 3 years now. So if we move over into Mountain Time, we're actually going to work and going live at 8 o'clock. If we move all the way into the Pacific coastline, we are going live at 7 o'clock on that local time. And if we move to the East Coast, we're going to work at 10. And it's really weird to think about that. Honestly, that kind of like knocks out the East Coast because we can't really move our time schedule forward or backwards or anything to account for when it's 9 o'clock for us because y'all are used to a specific time every single day, every single year now. So we still have to run it at that time slot every night. So really, honestly, we're going to be moving west, young man. We're going to be moving west, off somewhere in the Mountain Time or Pacific Time, most likely, because, hey, you know, there's a big plus there. We get to work earlier and get to bed earlier and kind of have like a normal day outside of that, rather than what we've been doing for 3 years, where we kind of wake up at like 11 or 12, and then we, you know, stay up till like 4 in the morning or something along those lines. But
Anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for support. Help this channel to keep on running. Chef of the LSA, and we can't wait for you to get back to mountain time. And a big thanks once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right. Now, moving on from that, actually, we're now moving on to our live chat questions proper. It's now that time of the night. And we, of course, we have our Morse code decoders up first. We have Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, and Norm Pritchett. And I believe that was all of them for tonight. But if I missed your name, give me a shout and I will give you credit. But they said the Morse code for today reads, how bad of a week can the Russians have? And I mean, can it get worse from here? And LLT, LSA.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dent on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all massively for getting that correct in the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps. Y'all get that thing correct every single day. Every single day. And I got to congratulate y'all in the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps because y'all continue to get that thing right time and time again. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And as our first live chat of the night, Miss Disa said 4 a.m. Who does that? And then Matthew responded, somebody would have to be manic to stay up till 4 a.m. And that someone's me. I stay up till 4 a.m. every single night nearly because I just can't get to sleep. I'm actually, like, crazily enough, I'm wired on caffeine every time we go live on the show. And it takes about that long for the caffeine to wear off so I can go to sleep. So I generally have to stay up, not because I want to. It's not by choice. It's really just because I cannot go to sleep any earlier. I have tried and tried, folks, to go to bed at like 2 or something like that. Never can do it. I just go upstairs and I shut my eyes and I'm still full awake because I'm just absolutely zooted on caffeine. So I just kind of have to wait till 4 every day, and then I get up at around like 12 or 11. So I get like 8 or 7 hours of sleep a day generally at this point. And then I get up and I have to cram everything in. Well, generally, I don't have to cram everything in as far as errands go if I don't have a video that day, because I have from about 12 or 12:30 till about 5:30 to get anything done that I need to, and then I get right back to work. Or on like a video day, I work until about let's see, 2:30 or 3, and then I have about from 3 to 5:30 worth of free time. So a little bit interesting for y'all to know my like daily work schedule and like living schedule at this point, but that's kind of how it works. Anyways, with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. Very interesting one, Miss Disa, because apparently I'm manic, according to Matthew. I'm freaking manic! But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to, guess who? A live chat question. And this one goes to Daming, who says, was there a fifth location where Ukraine attempted their drone barrage on Sunday?
No, they only attacked 4 air bases, and all attacks were successful, and the Russians never published any information about an attack that was thwarted, and if it was, they certainly would have told us about it. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Dan Metcalf, who said, are you guys going to cover the news that, quote unquote, Ukraine and NATO is, quote, irreversible?
There's not really any news to report on that because it's not really like a news bulletin kind of a thing. We just kind of report the whole process in between. So as far as reporting that, like as a thing, that's really more of an abstract thing than an actual news reportable kind of a thing. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Dunkle X throws in a $5 super chat. He says, any thoughts on the midnight clock? Old school group that predicted the likelihood of nuclear war. Godspeed and LSA. Honestly, the midnight clock to me is about as reliable as that dead clock we just looked at. It's like for entertainment value only. There's really no scientific method behind it. It's just like somebody's subjective perception of what nuclear war is likely to happen or not. So it just seems like a joke to me. It's like, if we're going into a nuclear war, we're all going to probably die. So it's like your clock is pretty much pointless at that point. Also, for them to know whether or not nuclear war is actually really likely or not, they would have to have access to all these classified briefings and intelligence, which they obviously don't have. So it's the same thing as us saying if nuclear war is likely or not. It's just somebody's opinion. That's it.
Yeah, also, what's interesting here, hold up, let's see here. What is interesting here, if you'll notice this, I find this really interesting here. Let's go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1963. So, well, actually, hang on. It would have been about 1960 or so. So, during the time that the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on, it was 7 minutes and 12 minutes to midnight, if we look around that time. So that was the time that we actually almost went to a full-blown war with the Soviet Union and actually almost saw the whole northern hemisphere get nuked into oblivion. So let's fast forward to the present day, and I'm sure it's got to be like 20 minutes or something. No, it's 89 seconds to midnight. And it's
You know why? I think that clock right there reflects the polarization of the country over time. Notice how the minutes start clocking down really bad as the country got more and more polarized. It seems politically motivated.
Yeah, because look at this here. Like it's hold up. I want to check this out. Yeah, look at this. It was like it would fluctuate actually, but it was always in the minutes. It wasn't in seconds. It was always in minutes, if you notice here. And it would fluctuate quite rapidly, at least over the timeline that they're showing on their website. But then watch this. Once you get to the collapse of the Soviet Union, which is in 1991, 17 minutes to midnight when the collapse of the Soviet Union begins. And then it ticks on down to 14, 9, 7, 5, 6, 5, 3, 2.5, 2, 100 seconds, 90, and then 89. And so it's like,
Wait a minute, go back up for a minute. Yeah, to the one that said failure of leadership. Go I'll back up for a second. Go up one more. Okay, interesting. I don't know. I have a very strong suspicion this thing is politically motivated.
it is generally politically motivated. And I also find it interesting how it was always in a good amount of minutes, or somewhere around 10 minutes or so, or even more than that, until recently. And it's like now it's going to start ticking down to pretty much zero just for nothing. I mean, like that doesn't make any sense to me. This thing it lost its purpose when the Soviet Union collapsed, and they just didn't want to get rid of it, so they kept it going, and now it's become a really politically motivated kind of a thing. I don't really like it. That's at least my take on it. But still, I hope that does address it well. Thank you once again for support. And with that, we are actually on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one is actually another super chat. This one goes to Danny B. Once again, excuse me. Sorry, Danny, for coughing on your super chat. And he says, Chef Danny again, and sorry, I have a few days to make miss the wonderful people of the LSA and the enforcers.
Hey, and it's okay. It's okay, Danny B. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all good here. It's all good. And I gotta say, I thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I got to thank you massively for supporting the channel as well. And hopefully, once you get back to Colorado, you can be over here with us every single night, like you usually are. We love to have you here, Danny B. We love to have everyone here in the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on to that third to last question of the night.
Also, by the way, I just got to mention this. Butchie777 lives nearby to Clarkson's farm, like Jeremy Clarkson's farm that he actually operates out there in England, by the way, and they're going to go eat there. I'm honestly like really jealous of that, by the way. I can't remember exactly where in England it's located. I know it's out there somewhere. I don't know if it's near the Cotswolds or not. I might be off on that, but it's somewhere out there. He's got a farm, and he does that show on Amazon too. Oh, there it is right there. Let's see where it's at. Near Chipping Norton. That was it.
And that is
we're outside of Oxford.
Damn, that's north of Oxford. That's crazy because I think like
it is in the Cotswolds.
Yeah, it is in the Cotswolds actually. Huh. Interesting.
Honestly, though, I wish I could go by here. Like, I am such a huge fan of the Top Gear people, way more than I probably should be, to be honest. I would love to go to Clarkson's farm just to go eat there or something. And also, they mentioned the cow juice too. That was so cool. Like, honestly, I think Clarkson's done a great job with that show right here. This show is as interesting, if not a little bit more interesting, than the Grand Tour series he just did with all three of them together. Obviously, all three can't be replaced. Like, all three together, it's like a huge, like, complete package. But at the same time, the farm show he's done here has been fantastic as well, which you wouldn't have expected that to be interesting, but it is. So yeah, I like that. I like that. Like each one of them, Clarkson, May, and even Hammond too. Hammond, not so much. He did some Discovery Channel stuff, but not a whole bunch of independent film work. But Jeremy and also May has done a fantastic job with their independent series as a whole. Like I like all three of them. Like I do.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. I gotta say they do really interesting shows. And honestly, man, honestly, man, that was a powerhouse of presenters for television, because really whatever they go into, they can find a way to make it interesting. Like they have a very good staff behind them. They're very good presenters as well. Generally, whatever they do, they generally will do incredibly good at it. I will say though that the one thing I was never really impressed with from the trio, or even them singularly, was the Grand Tour. I feel like the Grand Tour just tried to emulate what Top Gear did, but worse. And I didn't really like that show all too much. Top Gear was the best thing that they ever did. Clarkson's Farm is a very close second, and then James May just does whatever the hell he does. It's just like a random hodgepodge of things, but it's all very well done every single time he does whatever the hell he's doing. It's really good.
I hate that Hammond didn't do more stuff that was more on the creative side. Like he does presenting, like he's good at it too. I'm not trying to like discount him or anything, but he does more of like the documentary side of things, like going on the oil rigs and showing how they work. More of like technical stuff, and it's good, but it's just not the same. Like for example, James May going to Japan and doing all the little like quirky stuff he's doing in Japan and stuff, and all these travel series, and also Clarkson doing the farm thing, which is pretty interesting to see how that works. It's like Hammond just need to move toward that direction too. I don't think that's his personality though. That might be why he didn't do that. But if he would have done that as well, I'd probably watched all his stuff as well. But he just didn't go that direction.
Yeah, Hammond actually is very good at presenting too. Like he always had his fun, interesting segments whenever he did them on his own. But I just think, man, like I really do think it's not necessarily his personality. I think he more so liked kind of like the powerhousing trio kind of a thing that they always did, because he always seemed that was like his natural habitat, more so than trying to go off and do like singular individual things like Clarkson and James May did.
The funny part is Hammond got the job at Top Gear like originally, like way back in the day when Top Gear was starting and they were trying to find co-hosts for it. Jeremy Clarkson started it along with Andy Willman, who was the producer. And they found Hammond. I think he applied for it. Hammond did not believe he was actually going to get it, but he was just his manager, because he had a manager at the time, just said, go apply for it and see how it works. So he shows up and speaks with Clarkson, and Clarkson asked him like a series of interview questions and stuff. And I think Hammond, before he left, cracked some kind of joke that Clarkson found funny. And that was the only thing that Clarkson said made him pick him over everybody else, was the joke that he cracked on the way out the door. If it hadn't been for the joke, he would have probably just picked some other random person that would run with it. But that's how he got it.
Yeah, it's wild, man. Honestly, usually, man, people are picked out like that for some reason, where they just like they're told by their agent, "Look, just go try it." Like, what's the worst that could happen? You'll be told no, and then they go in there and they get the job, and then they end up being a great fit. And he was a great fit for sure. It's just really a shame that he didn't want to go off and do his own things a lot. But honestly, man, I mean, with the amount of money that they all made, he's probably having a great time in retirement, anyways, just getting to do whatever he wants without having to worry about doing everything.
He's got a very nice house, I believe, also out in the Cotswolds as well. And also he's got a garage as well. He's got a ton of bikes in it and stuff like that. So, yeah, he's doing fantastic. He's got all kinds of cars.
Yeah, man. Like, honestly, he's but the thing is, man, is like once you get into retirement, you really don't know what to do. Like, and it's like, I wonder what he does. Like, does he go to charity events or something? Like, I wonder what he does for his free time, since he's got plenty of it now, and he doesn't really do a lot of shows.
Also, Butch, you brought up the joke. The joke that Hammond told Clarkson that ended up getting him the job was that he said he was going back to the NAM, and he was talking about Cheltenham when he said that, because apparently it wasn't that great of a place. So he made a joke like it was Vietnam. And he called it the NAM, going back to Cheltenham. So that's what got him the joke, was apparently Clarkson busted out laughing from it.
Oh, wait a minute, he's from here? What does Cheltenham look like now? Like what is this?
I don't know if I think he was living in Cheltenham at the time. I'm not sure if he was actually raised in Cheltenham. I think he was from Birmingham in England, I think. I'm pretty sure. I think he might have moved to Cheltenham.
He was from Birmingham, but I think when he did the interview, he was in Cheltenham. I don't know why. I don't really know their stories a lot. I don't even know why he was there, because it's right next door to Gloucester, which a lot of people know in Britain as an interesting place. But I don't honestly, man, he just had a rough run of it, because growing up in Birmingham in like the 60s and the 70s, and really growing up anywhere but London in the 60s and 70s in Britain, was hell. Like, every single city was in the shit at that point in history.
Oh yeah, he talked about it being in the crap too. Yeah, his childhood wasn't like bad in like an abuse sense or anything like that, but it wasn't like a very like upscale upbringing either. It was more of like a factory town sort of thing.
Dude, Birmingham in the 60s, though, it was rough. But, like, honestly, man, he's kind of blessed, though, because he could have had it a lot worse. He could have been truly born in the north of England, which was hell on earth at the time, everywhere. Like, I remember, man, people were talking about, at that time, Newcastle upon Tyne was the most poverty-ridden city in the whole of Britain. And it was a huge thing at the time. It was like in Britain, funnily enough, man, they actually have the North versus the South, kind of like we do here in the U.S. historically. But the difference is that in their country, instead of the South being poor and the North being wealthy, it's the opposite way around. The North is poor and the South is wealthy. And so
Yeah, the South is where it's at in England. Like the North is not that great, in my opinion.
yeah, the north is a little bit rough, generally because it was all about resource extraction. That's why all these cities grew up to be what they were. Like Newcastle upon Tyne, for most of history, that was really where the world's coal was dug out of the ground for most of coal's history of being an important fuel source for humanity. That's where it came from. But really there just isn't a lot of economic activity up here beyond resource extraction, and once that started to disappear from Britain in the 60s, it slammed the northern part of the country like a ton of bricks. Like it's still well worse off than the south of Britain to this very day for that reason. And
Yeah,
that's
I knew somebody that was from Liverpool in high school, who came over to America from Liverpool. Her whole family did, and Liverpool was described as being very, very bad, extremely bad. I think we actually went to Liverpool when we went there one time. Wasn't that where we went?
Yeah, man. Remember we accidentally went to what the hell is this place? You're in the Wirral on the other side of the Mersey. You shouldn't be
Yeah,
here.
that
You,
was
you
it.
need to go back. Like, dude.
That was it.
Oh my god, dude, that guy had us scared shitless. We'll tell you all the story. It's a fun one. Like so we were on a trip to Britain. We went to Liverpool, and we ended up taking a wrong turn. Honestly, I hate riding in cars. It was always uh like just to paraphrase, driving in cars with the whole family was never peaceful. It was always a bunch of yelling and cussing and screaming. So I absolutely hated being in cars. And so a wrong turn was taken. And not to get into the rest of it, but we ended up getting onto like a toll booth somewhere right here. This is the one that we were at. And so we pull up to the toll booth and we're like, we took a wrong turn. And the toll booth guy said, "You're in the Wirral on the other side of the Mersey. You shouldn't be here. You have to go back. I'm going to let you through free, but you have to turn back and get away from here." He made it sound like we literally entered a war zone. So we went forward onto this roundabout, spun around the roundabout, and then went right back out and left. We went right back through this Kingsway tunnel, right back into Liverpool. And we were like, what the hell was in the Wirral? Like we were just asking that the rest of the day, because the way the guy acted, it actually sounded like we were about to get executed for being in that area.
So someone said in the chat, you guys went to Birkenhead. That's tough. And apparently that's where we were driving into was Birkenhead. I didn't know anything about it. Like, here's my thing. When we saw the hoods in England, it didn't compare to the hoods we're familiar with. Like, our hoods are like dramatically worse than anything you see in England when they say it's a hood. Like, I think we drove into several hoods in England. I was like, oh, this is a decent side of town or whatever. And then you'd realize later the locals thought it was like horrific. Like, nobody even walked in there, drove in there. It's like, well, it's not that bad. It's like, if you think this is bad, come to Alabama, like in the backwoods parts occasionally, and you'll see bad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like it's bad, yes, relative to what y'all are used to in Britain. It is bad, but if y'all ever came to a place like Alabama, you would actually see that y'all's bad is nowhere close to ours bad. And I don't say that as like a pissing contest. I actually say that count y'all's blessings that it is not that bad. Because here you truly do have to avoid places because you could just get shot. Sometimes for just being not the right kind of person for an area, to say it that way. Over in Britain, though, those kinds of things can happen, but it is actually significantly less so than it is here. So y'all are actually kind
Well,
of
it's becoming more common now, but that's more of like the inner city sort of thing, like London and things like that. There are some like gangs roaming the streets looking for certain types of people to go get. That's becoming more common, which is something I think they're starting to think about dealing with.
Yeah, it's starting to become a more of an issue there. But man, Liverpool wasn't that rough when we went through. Like, a lot of people always say things from their home countries, like this place is rough and that place is rough. And once again, it's a nation to nation basis relative to what they're used to. To us, it looked fine everywhere we went in Britain. We never really saw a really bad area. But to y'all, it was really bad. So when we went through Liverpool, it didn't look that rough to us. We were like, oh wow, this is actually neat. Like, this is a nice city. Because it's just Liverpool is a cool place. So. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Anyways, with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this is a super chat from Dunkle X. He put in another 5 and said Raven had the best question of the stream. And does the enforcer legally have to go for the railroads when he plays Monopoly?
Pretty much, yeah. I usually try and shoot for railroads if we ever play Monopoly, but we didn't ever play Monopoly. That's like PTSD simulator for us. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And yeah, I would pretty much shoot for the railroads if I was playing Monopoly every single time. And I'd always end up losing because I never had any properties to buy hotels. I just like live and die on the railroads alone. But still, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so who was the last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Mark McKernan, who said, will the FSB commander fall out of a window as well after living next door to the Ukraine drone factory and not seeing it?
Probably so. I think that that's probably going to be coming in their future. Like I said, a lot of people end up falling out of windows for things like that. He's going to probably be finding a window in the next couple of months. But with that, we have reached the end of the stream, folks, and what a stream it has been. We had 12.1 thousand people here at the peak. 93,000 people have watched this stream from beginning to end, and I've got to say that we're entirely honored and appreciative of each and every single one of y'all for making sure to be here tonight, watching it and enjoying it. And I also got to thank all the folks who supported the channel as well. We will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. If there is enough news to be able to make a short war video tomorrow, y'all will be hearing from me again. It was actually Matthew's day today, but because Matthew had head-splitting headache, he couldn't make it, so I had to make it in his stay. So it will be my day again to make the video tomorrow, so if there is enough news, I will be the one making it for y'all. But beyond that, y'all can expect to see us here on stream as usual tomorrow at the regular time. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraine, and long live the Least Spring Army. The Least Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight. And big shout out to all 94,000 people that were here by the end of the stream. A whopping amount of people here tonight, and we appreciate every single one of you. And with that, the Enforcer will be bringing all the video tomorrow if there is one to make. And also, we will see you both tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next nightly War News stream. But with that, of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, get some rest, and good night.